Right, good evening, everyone, and welcome to this meeting of the Scrutiny Committee. I'm your chair, Councillor Rachel Carnack. The role of this committee is to scrutinise performance and take a closer look at topics of interest across the council services, making recommendations to Cabinet where necessary. We are joined this evening by Mel Dawkins, Cabinet Member for Environment and Climate Change, and she's been invited this evening as the portfolio area directly connected with tonight's special theme of water. And we may have another Cabinet member who joins us later. So I'd like to welcome all the councillors here. We'll also be joined presently by representatives of South East Water and Southern Water, who I will allow to introduce themselves when we come to their presentations. But first of all, we need to transact a couple of pieces of committee business. Some housekeeping before we start. There's no fire alarm planned this evening. Should the alarm sound, please leave via the nearest available emergency exit. 2 of the closest exits are through the glass door behind you and through the double doors onto the riverside. Please meet at the Tower House car park. Members of the public are welcome to make their own recordings of this meeting using whatever non-disruptive methods they think are suitable. And can I remind everyone present that this meeting is being minuted and filmed and made available to view in live and archive form via the Council's website. If you are seated in the public gallery, the cameras may capture your image. If you wish to avoid being filmed, please make sure a member of staff is aware who can direct you to where to sit. The Westgate garden gates on the riverside are locked, so members of the public must leave the Guildhall by the side exit behind the glass door. Right, Andrea, do we have apologies for absence?
We do, Chair. We have apologies from Councillors Campbell and Mackenzie.
And any substitute members?
Yes, we have Councillor Heaver here as a substitute for Councillor Campbell and Councillor Naomi Smith for Councillor Mackenzie.
Thank you. And do we have any declarations of interest by members or officers? Maria and Councillor Heaver.
Just to declare, Chair, that I'm a board member on Kanenko.
And yes.
Thank you, Chair. I'm also a board member of Kanenko.
Thank you, Chair. I'm a board member of Partnership One.
And Councillor Heaver.
Thank you, Chair. I'm a member of the Southern Regional Flood and Coastal Committee and the Kent County Council Flood and Water Management Committee.
Thank you. And I think it's mentioned later in the presentation, but I'll also declare that I am on the board of the Internal Drainage Board as well. Right, okay. So later, as we get quite a bit later into the evening, we have 3 public speakers and we will hear them during the relevant item when we come to the main report on water. But before that, we have minutes of the meetings held on 26th of November 2025 and the 15th of January 2026, which we need to agree by general assent. But before we do that, Mary Royal, Director for People, is going to give us an update on the minute points from 26th November on the gender pay gap and the 15th of January, which was the call-in with an update on the Wealden condition wish list. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. With regards to the gender pay gap, I think it was Councillor Forrester that pointed out that the submission was late last time. We'd actually supplied the information on time. However, it had to be recalculated. There are a number of salary sacrifice schemes that need to be included within that calculation. So it was resubmitted with additional information. At the minute, the current year's data and commentary is being worked on at the minute, and the deadline of the end of March will meet that, and it will be submitted on time. Thank you. With regards to the previous scrutiny committee meeting on the 15th of January, and the wish list that was produced as part of the minutes, just as a quick reminder, point 1 was around recent social media posts, referred to a toolbox being worked on. and training is needed for all members as to what tools are available to the council. Training programme on conditions regarding water management, identification of tools that can be used by our planning committee, and again provide training to all councillors, not just those on planning committee. The next point was around clear guidance as to what can and cannot be put in place, and what could a Grampian or similar condition be appropriately applied to, how they work, how they can be used, and what the outcomes of using them have been elsewhere. There was another point around investigating what tools are being used by other local authorities and considering adding these to the toolbox, and undertake a review of planning applications over the last 12 months and consider whether any conditions have been applied, how they have worked, and have they been successful in terms of their application. So today I can report back that we've liaised with relevant officers within the planning team, and Simon Thomas and Andrew Thompson have both offered to provide training to all councillors to look at conditions generally and how we deal with wastewater treatment. So the training will cover the items listed in the minutes 1 to 6, which were outlined within that wish list. So they will set out the problem from the evidence that we have, include solutions available already, so the toolkit, links to various existing policies and current investments that the water companies are implementing, the role of the council, particularly the LPA within the process, and local plan policy tools as well. So that's all in the pipeline. It's being worked up now and will be rolled out. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Marie. So can we agree the minutes from 26th of November? Are you okay with that, Councillor Forrester, on the gender pay?
Yes, Chair, thank you.
Okay, so if we can agree those by General Assembly. Those are agreed. And then do we have any comment on the update on the Wealden condition wish list from 15th of January, or are we all okay with that and we can agree those minutes by general assent? Yep. All agreed? Yes, thank you. Right, those are all agreed. Thank you very much, Marie, for those updates. Right, we move to the next item, item 6, which is Companies Governance Matrix, and I'd like to invite Matthew Archer, Head of Corporate Governance, to introduce the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, everyone. I'm here today to describe the governance arrangements in relation to the way that the Council oversees the activities of the 3 Council-owned companies. This is a report that I've taken to the Companies Advisory Committee and to the Audit Committee already. And the purpose of bringing it here today is basically to sort of complete the loop of all of those involved in the matrix so that each of you understands where your involvement fits within the overall cycle. As you'll know, we've got a stake in 3 companies. We're the sole owner of Kanenko. We're a joint shareholder in Stour Environmental Credits with Ashford Borough Council, and we're part of a 3-council partnership for Partnership 1, overseeing revenues and benefits and customer services, with Dover District Council and with Thanet District Council. Each of those companies is run by its own management team, and there is a board of directors which is accountable for the delivery of the service, and that is, in each case, the board of directors is made up of officer representatives from each council. The client arrangements include officers, again, from each council. So within Canterbury, Nikki Mills, our Section 151 officer, is the lead client for Kanenko and for Partnership 1. And Peter Davis has that role, Joint Chief Executive, has that role for Stour Environmental Credits. And they will be liaising with portfolio holders on a regular basis to report back on company activity. The matrix on page 23 of your agenda describes the roles of the various committees in overseeing company activity. I will just summarise briefly the content of each of those boxes so that you can understand in brief what the roles are. Cabinet acts as the main decision-making body, so they are accountable for the delivery. They are the ones who set the blueprint for the activity that those companies carry out. So they will approve the annual business plan and any strategic plans that sit above those. Cabinet also approve any other reserved matters that require council approval before the company can act. The company's advisory committee is an advisory body to Cabinet. So their focus is in their twice-a-year meetings on one to look at the annual business plan and on the other to look at the corporate health of the company, which can look at things like progress against delivery of the plan, risks, financial stability, how well it's doing with compliance, and also on some of the important cultural issues such as staff engagement. Crucially, the advisory committee provides an opportunity to talk directly to the senior manager and directors of the company. So it's a chance to speak to them on a more direct basis about how well they are progressing with delivery and what challenges and risks they're facing. The role of scrutiny, as usual, is to hold Cabinet to account and to scrutinise services. And you scrutinise company services in the same way that you would scrutinise any other. So from your point of view, you're looking at the activity rather than who is delivering it. Through your theme meetings, you're keeping strategic oversight across a wide range of services, as you know. And in the context of the companies, the themed approach provides you with an opportunity to look at star environmental credits within the environmental theme, Canenco in the housing and contract management theme, and Partnership One within the finance, projects and performance theme. So if there are particular issues that you want to draw out, then obviously the opportunity is there to try and raise issues in advance of those meetings so that questions can be dealt with on the night. Audit is there to ensure that the governance framework for monitoring companies is fit for purpose and robust, and they also receive audit reports in relation to those companies and sign off the audit plan, which determines the kind of things that will be audited within each company on an annual basis. So I hope that brief summary sets out in enough detail how we're monitoring our companies at the moment, and happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Matthew. Yes, Councillor Dixie.
Thank you, Rachel. The governance structure does seem to be very top-heavy and over-managed. We have a company board of directors. We have a senior officer management team. We have a company advisory committee, the CAC, and we in Scrutiny have a role, as does audit. And of course, there's East Kent Audit Partnership. That strikes me as being somewhat OTT. If it isn't OTT, I don't know what is. Thank you.
Shall I hear? Do you want me to come back straight away? Okay. Yes, well, point taken, Councillor Dixie. I think the triangle of cabinet scrutiny and audit exists for practically all of our services, and perhaps sort of shown in this light, it might look top heavy, but actually that is the level of scrutiny that all of our services receive. The key difference with this one is the opportunity to talk directly to the company as well through the advisory committee, which I think is helpful insofar as otherwise there is a risk that companies can be distant from councils, and there are examples across the country of where that hasn't necessarily ended well. So what we've done here is put robust arrangements in place that follow recommended best practice.
Thank you. Councillor Watkins.
Thanks, Chair, and thanks to Matthew again. I've commented on the report itself before, but it's useful for summarising the governance. I think the key point I wanted to make this evening is that none of us as councillors can really do our job, whether we're cabinet, actually overseeing what gets commissioned by Canenco, or backbenchers or opposition, unless we have up-to-date data for the key performance indicators across the 4 sets of services that Canenco deliver in our district, so waste collection, grounds maintenance, street cleaning and toilets. And I think through all the various meetings that all of us, actually, all councillors from all parties have been actively contributing towards over the last 6 to 12 months. We've got the contracts now, the new contracts in place, which is great, but we did identify in the meeting last week at the Companies Advisory Committee meeting, probably the minutes are not out yet, hence I wanted to make this point tonight, but we all agreed and we recommended to Cabinet that we've really got to ensure that we have a dashboard of that KPI data going forward so that all of us can really do our jobs going forward. And that was given as a very strong steer to Cabinet, and we're hopeful that they will agree to that. And that dashboard then can be attached potentially as appendix across all these different committees, because actually whichever lens you're looking at Canenco from, at those different 4 sets of meetings and governance, you always need to have data. Data's always got to be at the heart of it, because if you don't know what the performance is, how can you manage and improve it in the future? So I just wanted to make that comment. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Watkins.
Yes, that's noted. And yes, all the comments from the committees are being taken away and will be looked at.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much, Matthew. I think, yes, scrutinies, along with other committees, have played a key role in this, in pushing forward that we need the data. And I think that will be an important step, that we hopefully get that data and we're able to then look at performance more simply, hopefully, and successfully. So, yes, thank you for that. Can we agree that report by general assent then, please? Yes, that's agreed. Thank you. So, thank you very much, Matthew, for being here this evening, albeit briefly. And yeah. And we now move to item 7, which is our Levelling Up Fund quarterly report. We're coming to the end of these, and I'd like to invite Senior Programme and Performance Manager Stacey Wells to introduce the report. Thank you, Stacey.
Good evening. Okay, so I think in terms of the Levelling Up programme, it's been a really busy time, but we're actually coming to the conclusion of the programme. And over the next couple of months, pretty much most of the sites will be completed, which is fantastic news. If you've been out around the city, if you've had a look at Dane John Gardens, the flowers that are in bloom there are glorious. So we're really now beginning to see some of the improvements across the city. So in the next couple of months, the programme is in the report, but, as planned, the St George's Square, Westgate, Dane John Gardens, Three Cities, St Mary Brenman will all be done. Greyfriars, the planning permission is still outstanding. It is currently being reviewed by KCC ecologist. So until the planning permission has been achieved, the play scheme can't be implemented. So that's where that programme is at the minute. Solids, I think we initially said we were hoping to get that completed by the end of February. Due to the really wet weather, it's pushed back the turfing and the painting. So that's going to be a few more weeks before that is completed, but it's getting there. The Tower of St Mary Magdalene, it's just the finishing touches now. They're now going into the site. The bench has gone in. All that remains to be done is the lighting and the engraving in the pavement, which will show where the inscriptions around the church. So those engraving will be done at the same time as the engraving at St George's Square and in Three Cities. So just the contractor coming in and doing all that in one go. Across all the schemes, there's then the finishing touches. So once the main landscaping works have been done, you'll then see the cycle lockers going in those sites that haven't yet got them, the interpretation totems. So that will be kind of the last bit, along with the lighting, to be completed in each of those sites. You'll note in the report that the last site will be the castle, which is such a primary site and really important as part of the programme. We've indicated in there because of the impact of that site, we really want to make sure that if there's anything that crops up throughout the works there, that we've still got the budget to really deliver what we set out to deliver. So that's one of the reasons that we've paused the highway works on St Radigan Street. Our intention is that we'll still be able to carry that out, but as I say, just the risk around managing the budget and anything unexpected happening during those works, that we just want to make sure that we can move budget around, but we're not expecting that. So the other thing that I suppose has progressed since the last time I came and reported is starting to look forward to celebrating and showcasing these sites. So we're currently planning a Canterbury Unlocked branded series of events which will launch Westgate Square and the Dane John Gardens sites over the bank holiday weekend at the end of May, which will be 24th, 25th of May. The full programme is going to be kind of publicly announced, so I'm not going to go into that, but we are working on that programme and also working in partnership with lots of the other event organisers across the city, so that it will be not just events taking place at Westgate Square and in Dane John Gardens, but in Whitefriars and in some of the other sites as well. So we put out an expression of interest in autumn last year to start putting together a full programme across the city for that period. So there will be a public announcement around that weekend imminently. I think that's probably it in terms of where we're at.
Thank you very much, Stacey. It's really good to hear we're nearly there on a project that's taken about 6 years so far, from conception through to getting the funding and putting it in place. So yes, I think we will look forward to seeing the end result. Do we have any questions? Councillor Dixon.
Thank you. I'd like to make 2 points, both concerning Westgate Square, which of course is right next to this building. The main reasons for the delay of the opening of the square has been that for weeks on end, there were only 2 people working on the project. Some days there was nobody working on the project. Now I know that because I walk past it almost every day. Obviously the wet weather slowed it down further, but that's not the real reason. It wasn't progressed during the middle of the project. And I also have huge reservations about the use of Westgate Square. A licence is being applied for by the council for its use. Not for 500 people, not for 1,000 people, not for 2,000 people, not for 3,000 people, but for 3,600 people. Can you imagine 3,600 people out there in the square? It's madness and a huge potential safety issue. I brought this up with officers and I'm just hitting a brick wall. Please, please, can this be looked at again? A sensible number, which I would think was about no more than 1,000, probably less, be the agreed figure for the licence. Thank you.
Yes, Stacey.
Yep, I can come back on that. I mean, sorry, around the overall programme, we said it would be about a year for Westgate Square, starting last April. So I think, you know, it has been around a year that we've managed to deliver. I mean, I can't talk about, I'll our own contractors, but it's not just our contractors that have been on site, you know. So the recent works have been BT on there and other utility providers. So we have had to pause the programme while they've been working on it. But yeah, I mean, I can't really say too much more about that. In terms of the event application, that the events team are organising that, and you know they will be charged with in the future any requests for holding events in that space. So, in terms of the 3,600, that is a calculation based on square metres of literally how many people will fit in there. However, we're not promoting this to attract that amount of people to the event. It is a event for local people to celebrate and say thank you for their patience while all this work has been happening. So it's not going to be an event that we're promoting nationally to try and draw lots of people in. The next stage with that is for that paperwork to go to the safety advisory group, and that will be scrutinised by, you know, police, ambulance, all the services. And if they have any concerns around safety, security, then, you know, they will definitely, having worked with them previously, put limitations in to ensure that.
Come off, you don't need to go to anybody outside to know that 3,600 is utterly bonkers. That figure may be valid if it's an open paved area with no obstructions, but that's got curbs, low walls, and lots of obstructions there. It's just utterly crazy. So please look at it before you go out to anybody else. It's a nonsense.
I believe it's programmed in at the Safety Advisory Group imminently to be discussed, so I think it will come out of that.
So can that be looked at then, Stacey?
Yeah, I mean, I think Councillor Dixie has fed that back into the events team, haven't you? So I know that they're certainly aware of that. And, you know, all I can do is feed that back in as well.
And that can come from scrutiny as well then, as well. Thank you. Councillor Jupe.
I mean, what sort of events are we looking at here? How often is the road going to be closed? Do we know that sort of thing? Is that the appropriate place to ask that? Because that's what people wonder, because they think they're going to get the Westgate Towers closed all over again. And if they've got a licence for however many people, then it's kind of giving them carte blanche to do whatever event they like, surely.
Sorry. I think that, you know, any event would have to be formally approved, so it doesn't mean to say that anybody could just at any point go and hold an event there. I think there'd be a limit to how many times a year, you know, 5 or 6 times a year to hold an event. Doesn't necessarily mean, you know, things like the medieval pageant parades do there, doesn't it? And that's a rolling road closure. So I think it would certainly, if someone would want to put forward a proposal to close it for a week, then, you know, I don't think we're going to approve that, but that's certainly not my decision to make. So I don't think I can answer that in terms of this is about potential use of the space, but we're certainly not saying it is a full-time event space.
So I think, thank you, Stacey. I think if we request that is taken up then and looked at, are we able to agree that report? Are we able to agree that report by general assent? Yeah, okay, thank you. Sorry, we're rushing through that a bit, but we will have it back at the next meeting of scrutiny, and that will be the final, hopefully the final part of this, so we can then look a little bit more deeply at some of these issues, I think. So thank you, Councillor Dixie, and thank you, Stacey, for being here this evening. Right, we now are going to just take a couple of minutes break while officers depart and make sure that you're all set up properly. But in that long coastline, but we also have the River Stour. We have a number of other very important and historic rivers. We have Stodmarsh, and we have in other parts the marshes, the marshland, and ditches. And so it's a very complicated picture of water and sewage and drinking water and all the issues that have really come to the forefront over the past 6 years or so. So this is an important subject for us, for this committee and for this council to be looking at. So I'm grateful that you've come here this evening. So what we're going to do is we're going to have a 10-minute presentation from South East Water first, and then we'll take 30 minutes for questions and clarifications. And then we'll hear from Southern Water, again, 10 minutes and then 30 minutes. And then if we have any time at the end of that, we can maybe go back to South East Water if there are any further questions. We have had questions sent in already by some councillors, so we will take those first. They've been randomised in their order, so we'll take those and we'll try to put them together by subject as well. I think while we're going through those areas, if anyone has any further comment or they want to come back with another question, then it's probably better to try and do it then. But we do have a lot of questions to get through. So if everyone can keep their questions as short as possible, and sort of their comments as well, really quite short and concise, so we can really get through a lot of topics, because we do have so much to cover, and we know the issues that we've had in the district over the past year with loss of water supply in many areas, many parts of our district, and we also have Broad Oak Reservoir, the scheme there. So we will have a lot of questions, and then when we come to Southern Water, I'm sure we've got a lot of questions as well in regard to spills on our coast, sewage going into the sea, and what Southern Water has been doing to rectify that position. So if we're all ready to begin, then can I invite Joe Shippey? Yes, Joe, you're speaking, aren't you? Yes, Joe Shippey, who is Senior Community Engagement Manager at South East Water, and also if the rest of your team would like to introduce themselves as well. Thank you.
Sure. Thanks for inviting along tonight. My name is Douglas Whitfield. I'm the Water Supply Director of South East Water. And as we just explained, I'm here with my colleague Joe Shippey, Senior Community Engagement Manager. Dean Pastori is our Regional Production Manager within Operations. And Catherine Street, who is our Communications Engagement Manager for the Broad Oak project. So I'm going to run through a few slides, and Joe's going to chip in. And then we'll finish by outlining what's happening with Broad Oak. So I will crack on. So firstly, apologies for the incidents that we've had over Christmas and in the new year in January. And we're very conscious, we had issues in this area in the summer last year as well. It's certainly not what we're here to do. We're here to provide water. It's incredibly frustrating when we have these incidents, and I'll run through what happened. And there's certainly some lessons that we're learning, and hopefully give you some confidence of what we're doing to prevent these happening in the short and medium term. So what happened in January this year? So we had a freeze thaw, so a variation in temperature. It wasn't a significantly cold to hot freeze thaw, but it was a 14-degree temperature swing in early January. And what we saw, along with a lot of other water companies across the south of England and across large parts of the country, is that freeze thaw resulted in some land movement, ground movement, which sort of weakened the network, and we saw our leakage levels increase from our normal level of just under 100 megalitres a day over a period of a week. That went up to 160 megalitres a day, and in fact there was a 30 megalitre increase over one 24-hour period on the 6th to the 7th of January. So that put our system under stress, as that leakage meant that the demand went up by sort of 60 megalitres of water. That led to a reduction in the storage tanks across our region as we sort of had to try and catch up with that demand. It also led to a quadrupling of the number of burst mains and pipe repairs that we completed in January compared to that period normally. And Shortly after the freeze-thaw, we saw Storm Goretti come across the region. Storm Goretti caused power outages across most of this region, and also led to some quality changes. To the intense rain led to some quality challenges at our treatment works, which again caused problems across the region, and that did impact on customer supplies. And it was a very large incident for South East Water. At the height, we had around 25,000 properties, so that's nearly 75,000 customers affected across both Sussex and large parts of Kent. And unfortunately, that did mean for the people of Canterbury, we had around 3,000 properties impacted between around the 12th and 13th of January, and that was towards the end of the incident, really, where we were starting to recover but still saw the high demand. We unfortunately had some issues with our treatment works at Thannington, associated with some power blips as well, which led to some outages, which we're really sorry for, and trying to make sure that we put things right. But just go on to the next slide, Joe. I won't spend any time on this. This just shows the extent of the outages that we saw. We had around 16,500 properties impacted in East Grinstead in Sussex, around 12,000 properties in Tunbridge Wells, and then a number of properties in all the other orange areas across the Kent region. So it really was a challenging period for us and for our customers. And Joe's just going to run through what we did on the comms.
So on the comms side of things, obviously this was, we had a wider comms plan that we were implementing across the whole period, but for Canterbury specifically for those 2 days, we issued around 5 text messages to customers providing updates to those 3,000 customers impacted. 4 stakeholder updates came to local councillors and a few other members of Canterbury City Council as well as other key members. And we were issuing social media posts as well. We were also keeping a dedicated web page up to date on our website. We had a huge amount of media interest, as you're probably aware, both locally and nationally. And during those 2 days that Canterbury was impacted, we did 6 radio interviews or media interviews that day, and we were issuing a large number of statements for us. So we were issuing 14 media statements that day. Throughout the incident, we were keeping Kent Resilience Forum up to date, attending calls very, very regularly, acting on advice that they were providing, and also sort of providing information back in to ensure that the key members of the Resilience Forum were up to date with what was happening. In the Canterbury area, we did not set up bottled water stations, but we were delivering to priority services registered customers, which were about 238 customers on that list who were unable to go and gather their own water. And we were delivering water to 2 schools in the Blean and Harbledown area. As a comms team, we were doing a wider out of communications across Kent and Sussex, and also dealing nationally as well. And I know obviously we had the issues back in Whitstable in the summer, and we did learn a lot of lessons from that. The impact of the widespread impact and the 24-hour nature of the incident that we were dealing with in January stretched us completely. So we have learned some more lessons about how we can work as a comms teams, even more hyper-local, update the Canterbury area and other areas as and when incidents like this occur in the future. Because again, although we provided extra information, we know there is still far more we can do here on the communication side of things. We've set up links now with the University of Kent, which we are starting to progress now. We've got an awful lot of incident reviews which are currently underway internally and externally. So it'll be really interesting to see what comes back from those reports as well.
Thanks, Joe. I'm just going to touch on, Joe mentioned the Priority Service Register there, and that's our PSR register, we refer to it. So just to be clear, this is a register that any vulnerable customers can register on. Vulnerability can be in any shape or form, and there's a flag on it for any customers that would not be able to collect water themselves from a bottled water station, and then we endeavour to proactively deliver to all of those customers on our register. When we can see an incident brewing in a certain area, and certainly during the incident as well, we'll continue to deliver on a 24-hourly basis. So that's our Priority Service Register. I'm sure there'll be lots of questions on compensation. So we did try and make sure we paid the compensation as quickly as we could. Compensation is paid directly to customers' accounts, and they can either leave it as a credit on their account, or they can ask us to send them the money directly. And the compensation that we awarded there for the Canterbury incident, I won't go through all the details in the interest of time, but you can see it range from £50 to £300, depending on the duration of the impact and whether it was a household or a non-household retail customer. And as Joe mentioned, we didn't put bottled water station out in Canterbury in this incident. That's because we're expecting it to be a short-term event, and really it's only when it goes over 24 hours or we can see that it's going to go on that we will look to put bottled water stations out. But it's an area that we're always trying to improve, and in the last couple of years we've increased our own capacity on that. We've purchased 12 water tankers to have a dedicated fleet of alternate water tankers. We've also got a dedicated alternate water team now, so we're proactively engaging with all the local resilience forums and councils to try and pre-plan bottled water locations in areas where we can see we may have a risk of further interruptions. And this just gives you an idea of the locations that we've now pre-planned for the Canterbury area. There's around 14 bottled water locations that we've planned, and we're also taking part in various sprints and multi-agency events. Some have already happened, and I believe there's 2 scheduled for May as well, where we'll be working through in a bit more detail, as Joe said, to try and get these hyper-local plans to make sure that we're dealing with the issues that people have in the area. Well, I think I just want to briefly talk about, and one of the questions that we'll come on to is about, are we able to accommodate future housing demands? And I would just point out, we have a water resource management plan, which is issued every 5 years, revised on an annual basis. And when that water resource management plan is developed, it is developed using government housing predictions, and we're asked to plan for the resources for that. And that's what we've currently done. So our current water resource management plan was agreed in 2024, and it's going through its annual updates. But this is a very tight area with a low amount of headroom. And in fact, what's happened since our WRMP was put in place with the drive to increase housing, there's been additional housing put into this area above the numbers that were in the plans, and you can see them set out there. And we have highlighted to relevant regulators and people involved in those schemes that we will struggle to supply any housing growth above what's included in our WRMP. And we are pushing back on to make sure people are aware of that at the moment. We will be submitting revisions to our water resource management plan, our WRMP, which will show what we're trying to do to make sure we can close that gap, because we need to be able to supply those houses. So we'll be looking to see what else we can do on new resources and water efficiency as well, because reducing demand is an equally important way of trying to make sure we can feed those houses. We are investing into the area now, and I'm sure we'll talk about this in the questions. This is our 5-year plan, so our 5-year investment plan, which is the industry is funded in 5 years. As we've spoken about in previous sessions, this is nearly double the amount of investment from the previous 5 years. So as a company, last 5 years we spent £1 billion, having been funded 900 million, so we overspent by 100 million. But this 5-year period, we've asked for 1.9 billion in funding, so we've nearly doubled the amount of investment that we want to do. £33 million of that is aimed at the network in Canterbury area, and that is on above ground, so our treatment works assets and our water mains as well. And you can see there at Ospringe, we're looking to improve the resilience to power fluctuations at Ospringe, and also we've got an upgrade at Fannington Treatment Works, which feeds directly to Canterbury area, and a number of water main schemes there as well, which I won't go through in detail. We've only got a few minutes. So I'm going to pass over to Catherine now, because one of the key questions we often get asked is Broad Oak, what that's going to bring to the area and when that's going to happen. So I will pass over to Catherine.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. So proposals for Broad Oak Water are not a new concept and date back to the 1940s, with South East Water purchasing the site in the 70s. And in essence, it's about managing our supply and demand balance and ensuring reliable and sustainable water supplies for Kent into the future, but also looking at creating new habitats and places for the local community to enjoy. We're currently in the design process of the proposals at the moment, and we're looking to design the reservoir to hold just over 5,000 million litres of water and supply up to 22 million litres of water per day by the mid-2030s. And on the right-hand side on the slide, you can see our project vision at the moment. So if you skip on to the next slide, Joe, you can see a CGI of the early proposals for Broad Oak Water. So this is looking towards the village of Broad Oak, which is about 4 miles north of Canterbury city centre. And here you can really see the U-shape of the proposed reservoir and how it sits within the valley. We're looking at 3 embankments, a main embankment on the far side, and then 2 smaller embankments, which are being designed to protect the sites of special scientific interest and ancient woodland surrounding the site from flooding. So we're in an early design phase at the moment, and we're moving forward with that. And if you just skip to the next slide, I'll quickly run through the timeline of what we've been doing at the moment, and then where we are moving forward. So in 2024, we started environmental surveys on the site. So this is looking closely at the wildlife here, heritage of buildings, also water quality and water flow, and these are ongoing until 2028. And last year, if you know the site, you may have seen a little bit more activity as we were undertaking ground investigations. So looking at the makeup of the soil and rocks underneath the ground. And we did tests at around 161 boreholes, which have been sent to labs for testing. So far, it indicates that it's mainly London clay, which is really positive as we can use this material to create the embankments, and it reduces the amount of material that we need to import to the site, so reducing construction traffic as well. At the moment, we are in our public engagement phase. So this launched on the 4th of February. We are 4 weeks into the 6-week programme, and we have held 2 online webinars, as well as 2 in-person events, one at Broadoak Village Hall, and yesterday we were at Tyler Hill Memorial Hall, and our last one is on Monday at Surrey Social Centre. So this is a really important part of the project where we're keen to show the local community and stakeholders the design so far, but vitally get feedback, local knowledge and thoughts to help us move throughout the process. So that's going to close on Wednesday, the 18th of March, and then we'll review and collate all of the feedback received to help us inform the design. Next year, we will be doing public consultation on those refined proposals, so showing how the feedback has been taken on board and looking to gather further comments ahead of submitting a planning application in 2028. Around 2030, we'll be bringing on a contractor with construction expected to start in 2031. And our priority is to get water into supply, so we're looking at this from 2035. We are also looking at different amenities and visitor facilities that will be available on the site, and this will be likely take place after 2035. But a key part of our public engagement at the moment is to really understand what people would like to see and use and what's important to have here. So we've got a little bit more work to do on construction sequencing. Due to the scale of the development, it's been designated as a rapid project. So this stands for Regulators Alliance of Progressing Infrastructure Development, and it's a government consortium made up of Ofwat, the Drinking Water Inspectorate, and also the Environment Agency. So it's a gated process that we're going through at the moment.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Douglas, Joe and Catherine. And that's given us a good overview from which to start. So if we go from there, I have some questions on Broadoak, but I think they're supplementary to yours. So Councillor Paget, did you want to ask your question?
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for the presentation as well. You mentioned obviously the supply for Broadoak Reservoir planned from 2035. I'm just wondering, is that supply that Broadoak is planned to provide still sufficient in its capacity? And what are your future plans beyond Broadoak to be able to manage supply into the future? Thank you.
And Councillor Heaver, do you want to ask your question as well? Because we can take them both about the
Yes, thanks,
headroom,
thanks,
yeah.
Chair. Mine's the opposite version of the same question, really, is given the language you already heard this evening from Douglas. Nice to see you again, Douglas, spending more time with councillors than I am at the moment. But, and it's a very tight area, there's little headroom, you're going to be struggling to supply. My question is, assuming it's 2035, which is an assumption, how tight is this going to be? How much are you going to struggle, and how little headroom will there be between now and 2035, given the housing plans we have in this district?
Thank you.
Okay, so I'll try and answer those together. So, and it's a challenging area. This area, due to a number of things that have happened over a long period of time, has a very tight amount of headroom. And Broadoak has always been a long-term part of this. But as I say, we have a long-term water resource management plan. It's a 5-year look ahead, but it's part of a 25-year strategic plan as well. So we update that formally on a 5-year basis, and each year, if there are any significant changes, we will update it as well. So to answer the question about what happens after Broadoak, there's a number of different ways that we're being asked to maintain resources in the future. There is always a challenge around making sure the abstractions we currently use are sustainable. So there are some challenges around reducing current abstractions. That's a challenge. And we need to make sure we're only doing that where it's the right thing for the environment and the balance. There's obviously desalination is another option, and there's also water reuse, and there's also lots of things we can do around reducing customers' demand. So all those things are in our plan, and depending on what happens with demand and with housing growth changes and everything like that, we can either bring those forward, push those back. So Broad Oak does give us some extra headroom. There's a challenge because we're also looking at the sustainability of some existing sources, but further to that, it's around reducing customer demand through smart metering, so we can see where leaks are happening much more quickly, and then it's looking at what other the least environmentally impacting developments we can do, and in the future that would be desalination along this area, and that is in our plans for future years. To answer the question on the headroom in the next few years, I mean, I think unfortunately I can't magic new water out the ground in the short term. So the focus that we're really putting on in the next 5 years is around smart metering. So smart metering for us is not exactly the same as smart metering for electricity. And it's not, I mean, customers can see how much they're using and the cost of it. But for me, operationally, the real benefit of smart metering is I'll get live data with regards to leaks that are happening in the area, whether those meters are on our pipework or on the customer meter in the pavement, because we currently have, as part of our water resource management plan, we are one of the first companies, along with Southern, to put customer metering in all of our customers. About 95% of our customers are metered. They're not currently smart meters, so they're meters that we read on a 6-monthly basis. And if we see a leak on the meter, so on the customer's side of the pipework, when we read the meter, that's when we'll flag it, unless the customer tells us in between. But that leak could have happened the day before we arrived, or it could have happened the day after we left the previous time and running for 6 months. Smart meters will allow me to see the leaks instantly that they happen. So for us, over the next 5 years, we're starting our smart metering program, as are a lot of other water companies as well. And really it's that, along with a lot of comms on reducing demand and trying making sure that I've got maximised all of my sources at the moment to get through to the period where we get extra sources come on.
Yeah, Councillor Heath.
Just a brief follow-up for clarification, please, Chair. So in this district, I think there's certainly more than 20,000 new houses. So roughly speaking, 30, 40,000 people, additional people we don't have now. Of course, they're very welcome, but they also need water infrastructure. Are you telling us, Douglas, that between now and 2035, for the next 9 years, because you quite rightly say you can't magic water out of the ground, we're entirely dependent on smart metering and reducing demand to be able to meet that extra need from that extra population?
Smart metering, reducing demand and leakage. So we've got a large challenge along with the rest of the industry to drive leakage down. So we were trying to reduce our leakage by 25% over the next 5 years. That's a significant challenge. And again, we won't do that by doing more of the things that we've done historically. We're going to be using technology on smart meters, smart networks, much more pressure management, that sort of thing as well. So there are a number of demand things that we can do in the short term that we have not really focused on as an industry in the past. They are definitely the short-term aims. The other thing that is happening, which will help us with supplies in this area, is we are, at the moment, and I think I mentioned this last time, commissioning our new treatment works in Aylesford. Although that's over in Aylesford, there are significant main schemes coming online over the next few years, which will allow us to transfer that new water from Aylesford in towards this area as well. And the third area that we are doing to maintain the supplies is put more storage tanks in. And I mean, these are service reservoirs, so these are literally swimming pools with lids on, because it's the peaks of supply and of demand that cause us the problems during the summer months here. So having more ability to store more water in the network to sort of absorb those peaks in demand is key as well. So there's a number of other things that we're doing there.
Can I just ask quickly, what percentage of households in this district have meters already?
Across the company, we're above 90% metered, so 90 to 95% metered. We did a customer metering program about 12 years ago now, and we metered every property that we could practically do. Those that weren't went on to what we call an assessed charge, but when we're going through with the smart metering, we'll be replacing those meters and looking again at those ones where we couldn't meter 12 years ago. So it's as practically near 100% as we could get.
Thank you. Right, we're now going to move on to some questions really about, is it related to that, Councillor Jupe, or is it something different? Because I've got, oh right, okay, well if you can if you can, I'll come to you in a bit, because I want to go to Councillor Forrester and Councillor Smith first, because they have specific questions that they want to ask about resilience and the aftermath of the leaks last year. And I think if that fits with your question as well, Councillor Dupe, then I'll come to you in that as well. Do you want to talk about what happened in Blean? Yes, okay. So if we go to Councillor Forrester and then Councillor Smith, and then I'll come to you. Okay.
Thank you, Chair. Hello again. We met last year on the 15th of October at Whitstable School. You've touched on it this evening, but on that occasion you stated and emphasised quite heavily that the current investment plan for this area, before we get to the Broadoak Reservoir, includes the construction of additional treated water storage tanks across Kent to deal with higher peaks in demand. But what you didn't confirm then, and haven't confirmed tonight yet, is the timescale for these being put in place, setting out the overall timescale and specifically those that will be available to residents in our district, as opposed to other areas. Thank you.
I still can't give you an exact date, but I know that the period now is they're funded, they're in the plan. They have to be completed by 2030 at the latest. They are being issued to our engineering team at the moment, and we're trying to make sure we issue them in the best way for delivery. So we've got 3 or 4 service reservoirs to build. We're going to issue them as a package of work to make sure we can do them in the best way. So I'll have to confirm to you after this what that is, but I can do that fairly soon now. But I've got to get that exact date and programme from the engineering team.
Thank you, Chair. If we could ask for that to be followed up and circulated. Thank you.
We've just finalising our year 2. We're just entering year 2. We're finalising the detailed year 2 programme, but in the next few weeks we will have the overall year 3 to 5 programme, which will set out that. So yeah, certainly we'll be able to do that shortly.
Okay, thank you.
And Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Chair. Again, nice to meet you again, South East Water team. Again, at the 15th of October meeting, we discussed and looked at the chronic low pressure, repeated infrastructure failures and the wider resilience problems that caused the outages at Rakehill and Sea Salter, which I believe came from Sannington as well. And I noticed that Sannington's not getting the updates that Ospringe is getting at this stage. Since then, what specific actions have actually been completed? What remains outstanding and on what timetable? And furthermore, given the severe failures during last summer's heat wave, when we know what happened, and saying that daily demand was far higher than expected, when hot weather demand spikes are predictable, what changes are you now making to your forecasting and modelling so that Canterbury District is not placed at the same risk again? Thank you.
So just on, try and answer those and let me know when I miss a couple. So Sannington is having the same things we're doing at Ospringe, so it's not quite as far advanced yet. So Ospringe, so this area in peak demand, when the weather is hot and we're under sort of highest outputs, quite often can have power fluctuations, and they're not classed as faults from a UKPM point of view, but they're power fluctuations that trip our works off. This is what we're referring to here. So we're installing and commissioning in the next month, I think, being the battery solution at Ospringe. Immediately following that, we'll be rolling out a number of other sites across Kent. Tannington's one of the ones we're planning to do that. Whether that will be in for this summer or not, I'm not sure, but it should be in the next 12 months. So that's what we're trying to do. Tannington is also in for a wider maintenance upgrade in this 5-year period, which includes replacing all of the kit that's on site and installing some additional filtration there. So Tannington is having an upgrade there. With regards to what we're doing for this summer, as I say, we will be doing certainly more widespread comms around trying to flatten the demand during those peak periods from a demand point of view. But we're certainly focused operationally in making sure that for areas where we know we have to have everything available all the time, we've got enhanced critical spares, box spares on site, arrangements in place with support teams internally and externally to mean that we can react to failures more quickly if they happen. But really for us, it's about making sure all our planned maintenance is done as we head into the peak period, making sure we can react things as quickly as we can. And yeah, that's the plan for this year, along with that reduction in demand. And we're also pre-planning with the local councils around if we do have issues in risk areas, how would we react in those events in a better way, make sure we can sort of support customers if that happens. I think that's all. Is that any more parts to that?
So, particularly with Rakehill, this connection from Tannington to Rakehill, because I believe Rakehill is quite archaic in its Isn't there a pumping station, something that pumps it up
Service
there?
reservoir at Rakehill, so it's a storage tank.
Is it storage? Is that all it is? Okay. Because I am obviously concerned that we could have the same problems again, and so with the modelling, are you changing your modelling due to climate change and the sort of? Because you did say at the public meeting in October that you weren't prepared for this sort of weather, but there is new climate change modelling.
Well, what we've said when we met before as well is clearly we know that demand will go up in the summer. But what we have seen across the southeast of England, more than other parts of the country, we've definitely seen it. In the last 5 years, we've seen more weather extremes. And at the same time, through the COVID lockdown, we've seen a change in the way people use water, with more people hybrid working from home and less people commuting into London all the time. So it shifted our demand profile slightly, which most of the year is not a problem. But for these peak demand periods where we've got a slightly different demand pattern that's happened faster than our planning sort of horizons, along with the more weather extremes we're seeing. I mean, literally every year we're saying that this is the hottest year on record, or the wettest spring, or the driest summer. So that is causing us challenges, because we can update the modelling, but I can't create the new infrastructure and the new water that quickly. So that's why what I'm trying to do is make sure we're focused on the maintenance, reducing the outage and leakage in the short term, while we try and get these infrastructure projects coming in the medium long term.
Thank you. So when you talk about flattening demand, how do you flatten demand?
There's a number of ways, because what we find in the Kent area and Canterbury area, there are certain pinch point areas which we will have problems maintaining in those really high peaks. If some of those are areas where we have farming communities, we can work with the farmers in advance to try and make sure if they have any storage tanks that they can fill those up before we get into the peak demand, which just means they don't draw on the system during the hot weather. We're looking to try and supply them with temporary tanks if that works, if that would help. And it's really just a sort of campaign to customers where, for example, last year we tried to get people to use water for jet washing, patios, things like that, all the things that people do when it's hot, before it gets hot. So when we see hot weather forecasts, well, if you're going to do that, we're not saying we don't want you to, please do it early, so that in the hot weather, everybody doesn't suddenly fill up paddling pools and jet wash everything in the hot weather. You can do it a couple of weeks before, it flattens that peak. So it's things like that, changing behaviour, and trying to work with certainly farmer and retail customers to see what we can do to help them.
Yeah, we've definitely seen more farmers putting in tanks over this winter, and I think we have a question on that coming up in a bit. And does that mean that we're likely to see more hosepipe bans then, that will become more frequent?
Well, hosepipe bans are part of our water resource management plan, and if you have a drought scenario, you are expected to have them as one of your tools in your toolbox. In the last 5 years, we've put in 2 or 3 hosepipe bans. Previous to that, they were every 12 years, 10 years. So they have become more frequent. I can't say what's going to happen in the next few years, but it seems that those weather extremes are becoming more frequent. And the other thing, that there are triggers in the water resource management plan, which we've used for the first time last year. You can put hosepipe ban in, or temporary use ban restriction, if your demand exceeds your normal planning parameters as well. And we were the only company, unfortunately, that's had to do that. So normally a hosepipe ban is in because of a dry spring, low raw stocks. You can put them in for sort of high demand as well. So I'm hoping not to do that, but it is a tool that we have in our arsenal that we can use, but we're trying to do everything we can to make sure we don't do that, because we don't want to restrict people's use. We want to try and get through.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Jupe.
I should probably preface this by saying I should have declared I'm on the Broad Oak Reservoir Stakeholder Advisory Group. So many words to remember. I do actually have notes on this, obviously. First of all, thank you for coming. I'm sorry that you've been brought here to be rinsed when it really should be the Chief Executive, and I don't apologise for that pun. So you've put up a nice graphic on what you did during the outages. Is this related to any other question? Just before I continue ranting. So I obviously Blean Forest, that experienced quite significant outages, and your graphic said that you were delivering to vulnerable customers and to schools. You didn't. I know, because I was doing it. and working with the parish councils who bought a lot of water, and I don't believe they've been reimbursed yet, probably don't know where to send the invoices to. I was delivering them, along with Blean Parish Council, Tyler Hill Parish Council, who were looking after their residents who were on your priority list, who were being told when they phoned up that they would not be got to. So I need to see, you've got at the bottom there, incident reviews being undertaken by independent experts. Can we get a copy of that to see what's going to be done next time better? Because all of this happened at the same time that bills went up by a considerable amount. Now, Blean's a reasonably affluent area, but they're still not cash-rich people. They've got lovely houses, but they haven't got the money to spend on, you know, massively increased bills, which are now supporting the infrastructure projects rather than it coming out of the profits. I know why, can we please think of the shareholders, but we need to, you know, invest using their money rather than my elderly residents' money.
Thank you, Councillor Jupe. And I think tied into that is that it took quite a long time to discover there was an outage. And I think that's a concern for everyone here. And it was the same in Herne and Broomfield last year. And it's interesting because you were talking about the super meters and they'll spot leaks earlier. But can you also, when you answer that, tell us why it takes so long sometime or often to find these water losses?
Okay, let's start with that. The water losses, so leaks, we repair around 2,500 burst mains a year. Some of those burst mains are visible and the majority of those burst mains are not visible, or those leaks are not visible. So a leak is not always a nice gushing leak that we can see. It's often a seep from a join in a pipe that goes straight down into the ground. So that where we can't locate the leak, so we've got leakage teams out, we've got over 100 staff that are proactively looking for those leaks using different techniques. And then once we locate those leaks, sometimes we can go straight on them to repair. Other times we have to work and plan in to get access to the highways in the area. So we can definitely improve. We've made some big improvements in our leakage sort of run times and things now. I think on average now, once we've located them, they are being all repaired within 7 days at the moment. That hasn't been the case in the past, so we're definitely improving on that, and there's more we can do. There will always be some that fall outside that, where we can't access the road. So yeah, that's it. Sorry, and what was the other question you want me to answer around investment then?
The report.
Oh, the report, yes, there will be a version of that report where we'll...
And correct the figures.
Yeah, on the PSR deliveries, yeah, and I'm sorry to hear that. I mean, I know when we looked at the numbers, over 95% of the PSR deliveries that we were trying to do, we did achieve, but we're very aware that means that there were 5% across a very large list that we didn't achieve. That was bad for the customers, and what we've got to learn from that and try and make sure that we don't have that happen again if we have another incident. And that's definitely one of the things we're picking up with the multi-agency workshops, is about how can we work with those agencies in advance so that if we get into that situation, we can more formally sort of get those deliveries in place.
Is that okay, Councillor Jupe?
I just wanted to share one little tidbit there. One lady who rang up after an hour on the phone, she has liver failure, needs to drink 2 litres of water, was told she needs to ring 111 to get water because nobody would be delivering on the priority register.
She shouldn't have been given that advice. I'm sorry to hear that.
And thank you, Councillor Jupe. And before I come to Councillor Buckman and Councillor Forrester, Councillor Smith, do you want to talk now about the leak?
I seem to only ever talk about this leak. Church, in fact, yesterday I went to go down Church Lane to look at the leak, and yet again Church Lane is closed for I think the 3rd time this year, since January. I think it's the 3rd time. And it was closed last year for a long period for a big repair. I just want to know if you can get to the bottom of it, get it fixed, keep it fixed, because there is a lot of water going down Church Lane and it all gathers at the bottom into a nice big puddle at the bottom of Sea Salter Lane. In fact, there's a property that you have to jump quite a long way, so you probably need to do that one at the Olympics where you run, And, you know, I forget what it is. There's this very specific one where you have to jump over quite a big water jump. So if I could please get a solution to Church Lane leak, because the residents have had enough. I've got people who live in over 55 park homes who are usually generally very elderly, in their 70s plus, who need to walk to the shop at the bottom. And if you walk down, I got drenched walking down there 2 weeks ago. I think I did send video footage to you to show you. It's just not good enough. I want it fixed. Thank you.
Yeah, certainly we spoke about Church Lane before, and the road closure this week was to locate try and find the leak that is there a leak there at the moment. It's a problematic area, and I'll confirm whether we're actually renewing this main. But it's, for those that don't know Church Lane, and I don't know the area very well, but it's a very narrow lane on a hill, and what we have found is that a lot of water will find its way out to the bottom of Church Lane and look like a leak from the main, and it's not. It's water that's coming elsewhere. Sometimes it's been a leak, sometimes it's not been, so it proves very difficult. And also, some of the techniques that we often use for looking for leaks, because we've got pressure reducing valves in the area, we can't use those techniques because it puts noise into the area. So it is a challenging area. I'll have to find out the latest of what they found after this closure, because you're right, the closure this week was for us to do some leakage detection work out there, and report back to you on exactly what the latest is on that and what future plans are.
The Aqua Alerter has told me 3 times that the leak has been resolved.
Well, and I say quite often...
And it's the same leak.
Yeah.
And then somebody reports it again, and then it gets resolved again. But it's, you know...
Thank you. And Councillor Buckman, do you want to talk about the dedicated email addresses or something, or that and something else?
Something else, well, not something completely different, something along those sort of lines about the repairs. You know, it was a case of how, I was going to ask, how do you monitor the weakest points on your network? But then I guess, and more appropriately, how do you monitor the repairs that you've done, that they're successful, and how long do you monitor them for? So that was one point on sort of the repair side. You mentioned about smart meters. How do you decide what the houses you put the smart meters on? Because I don't think the new developments aren't having the smart meters at this moment. And then, yeah, really, I will go back to my question, if that's okay. It was about how, I've got to find myself now. Could you set up a dedicated email address for all stakeholders so that in times of emergency or need that they can make contact? Because, you know, residents have enough difficulty trying to find the water or panicking. So it would be better if someone else found that information out for them. And I note it because although, you know, you do have areas, I think you said you contacted different stakeholders for different areas and different MPs, etc. Some of those areas weren't quite right. The boundaries weren't right, and you had to adjust the boundaries to fit the stakeholder. So it would be good if you could have a dedicated email address that people could contact and ask, you know, because I think you also said about you didn't know the area very well, and I think that is half the issue sometimes. If you look on a map, it's very different to knowing the actual physical geography of an area. So people would know how to, you know, how far the water station is, and you know, if they're going to make a big trek to a water station, if there's water there as well when they get there. So sort of those sort of real-time updates. But yeah, so it's all around sort of the communication and someone else to do the work, to, you know, a council or a stakeholder group that could then publish it again to have more lines of inquiry. Thank you.
I'll take the email question before pass back over to Doug. We do have an email address, so any emergency incident and during any incidents, all councillors in that area will be emailed from our community email address. So that goes out, and that during an incident, during the week, when there's no incident, that is a 9 till 5, that's monitored 9 till 5. But when we go to an incident, it is monitored throughout the evening, weekends, as long as, you know, as long as we're working. Which is very long extended hours from very early in the morning till very late at night. So, and we are monitoring that inbox. So if you're receiving the updates from that email inbox, you can then respond to it, and we will our team will respond to any questions. If you need to know what the email address actually is, I can let you know after this if you haven't been receiving those. So yeah, we do have something like that set up.
Yeah, no, I just had an email for a different area, not my area, but we did work it out in the end. That's fine.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, regarding the area knowledge, I agree, and I don't know this area well, but the teams that are more closer to it and doing the alternate water planning are based in this area and working with the area team. So I do agree on that, and that's why we're trying to do pre-planning with the resilience forums now around bottled water locations and understanding the challenges of finding the right places. On the repairs issue, so yeah, we monitor the repairs. Obviously, it's a very tightly controlled process to get them done with lots of photo evidence and the contractor puts onto our system. And then we monitoring the system to see the weak points and where those repairs have held is really, it will get much more detail with the smart meter and smart networks as we develop that. But we have a large amount of sort of loggers on the network where we're monitoring pressures and flows across, which is how we see leakage outbreak before it's visible. And that's how we will track the sort of success of the repairs and things. On the smart metering, we don't split it by type. We're at the very start of the smart metering process is the first point. So it literally starts this year. It is starting in the Whitstable area, but there is a programme that will roll out across certain areas in the business based on where we think the tightest headroom is to make sure we can get the benefits there. But it won't be limited to housing type. You know, it's a 5 to 10 year programme to do the whole company. So it will be all properties. We're just trying to do the priority area and get it done the right way.
Thank you. And Councillor Forrester, do you want to ask about the priority register service? Yes.
Yeah. So I just want to say that when we met you after the sea salt shortage, you said that, oh gosh, sorry, I've just lost my screen. You'd taken learnings from the incident and had already put those into future plans to avoid such an incident again. But as we all know, and you've demonstrated tonight, we've had further incidents less than 6 months later, not at that peak time of year in the summer, but due to other problems. And from what you said tonight, it sounds like you're anticipating there may be more similar problems going forward. So when we met last year, we raised concerns, as other councillors have tonight, about residents on the priority register service and, crucially, those not on the priority register service. You stated then that you were continually working with external groups to increase the number of registered residents. But I wonder if you can confirm, since October, what activities you've done to increase that list, how many new residents in this district are on the priority service register, and what future work you have to do in Seasalter or in Blean or elsewhere in the district to increase that further.
So on PSR, since we met in October, we've had a percentage-wise increase of about 7.5% across this area, which is around 1,000 customers. So 969 numbers probably changed even since we put this together, but that's what's happened since October. There's an additional 207 in the Whitstable area, 275 in Herne Bay area, and an additional 487 in Canterbury. So that's through sort of encouraging people to, as they get in touch with us. We've also having discussion with Kent County Council about how to get more people onto that PSR. And we've attended a number of events since October to try and increase the understanding of the PSR. I can read out some, I won't go through the whole list, but we've been to Eat Well, Spend Less, Canterbury Kidney, Renal Unit, Family Hubs, Southern Water Matters event, and Broad Oak engagement plan. So we've tried to do a number of stakeholder local groups to encourage people to sign up. We advertise it on social media and on our website, and we also advertise it very heavily on comms during the incidents to try and say to people during the incident, if you're not aware and not on it and you can't get to it, please do register. And anyone who did register, and again in the high 95+%, anyone who registered, we were delivering to them within 24 hours and getting them on it. So we've done quite a lot on that. There's always more we can do, definitely. And I think the workshops we're doing over the next few months with the local council will hopefully help that.
Thanks. That does answer my question. I think it goes back to what I said previously and what you said before, that you're addressing it when there is an incident in the main, but obviously it would be helpful if you built up that list more and kept those comms going in the good times rather than when there is an incident and you are so thinly stretched. And I just want to say, thank you for coming here tonight and for the meeting in October. And I know, there's loads of residents here tonight. It's an issue for many of our residents that's very important to all of us, and we really appreciate it. But what I noted then and what I note tonight, and despite all your comms in January of the shortage, is your CEO, David Hinton, is conspicuous by his absence on all those occasions. And he's confirmed publicly to the Rural Affairs Committee that that's a conscious decision because he thinks he will be asked about, and this is a direct quote, his dividend, salary and bonus, which is not what he thinks he wants to talk about on those occasions. But I represent a very mixed ward. And when 1 in 5 people in England and Wales struggle to pay their water bill, I don't think that's doing them justice. And while he may not think that's what people want to talk about, I'm not sure that's the decision for him to take. And this looks and feels very much like another powerful man trying to avoid scrutiny by those he's providing a service to. I'm not sure any of you will be able to respond to that tonight, and maybe not adequately, but if you do have a response, I think myself and the residents may like to hear it.
Just to say, so our CEO will be attending, couldn't make tonight's scrutiny meeting, but we are doing a number of these. This is the first of a number, and Dave will be attending some of those scrutiny committees. We've got further committees in East Grinstead, which I think I'm doing, and then there's some in Sevenoaks and Tunbridge Wells as well, which Dave will be doing. He's also, will be doing media and comms to try and explain the position at appropriate times, but I can't answer all your queries, but that's, that's where we are, and that's what we're trying to do.
Thank you. And first of all, I'll come to Councillor Watkins. I don't know, you've got a couple of things because it's related with the water stations then, and the also abstraction.
Okay, yeah, I'll answer. I'll ask both. So firstly, in terms of a water supply cut-off, when you set up a water dispensing station for residents, I'm aware that some of those were not that accessible for residents to get to, particularly those who don't have a car. I'm thinking of Alteria Business Park on the edge of Herne Bay, but I've heard from other councillors, some other examples across the district. How do you choose those locations?
There's a number of things that we have to take. Sorry, is that the question? Yeah. So,
That's the second one. Okay, it's yes, just about. And the second one is on farmers. Can you update us on abstraction and reductions in irrigation for farmers in the district? Because clearly that is a potential challenge in the summers ahead. Thanks.
I'll take the first question first. So there's a number of criteria that we have to go through with alternate water stations, and we pre-plan them as much as we can. Unfortunately, I can probably guarantee that that's never quite in the right place, but that's why we're working more and more with the council. So for us, they have to be large enough to operate safely. They have to have sufficient access for HGV lorries. They have to not cause congestion in the local area, and that was a big problem with the events we had over Christmas. We'll always look for the most suitable locations, but it's always difficult. People want them, and that's when Joe and I mentioned earlier, we're trying to work with the councils about hyper-local solutions. There was lots of requests during this incident, not in the Canterbury area, to put bottled water stations at local village halls. I completely understand why people want them there, and we're looking at how we can do that, but they don't fit any of those criteria. That we can't really get a large lorry to them. They're not very good access, and they're for a very small number of people. So it's always a difficult thing to do, and it's a challenge for the industry, and we're trying to come up with industry guidelines to be very open about these are the things we will consider when we're designing an alternate water station. And that will work very well in some built up areas, but not so well in rural areas. And it's not an easy answer, because the more stations I have, if I have a lot of small stations, they can't take very much water. Therefore, that water disappears very quickly. Therefore, people will say you run out of water. It is a difficult balance, and there's no easy answer to it. For me, the easiest way is have 1 or 2 very large stations with large stocks of water that are very easy to access and update and keep in train. That's not ideal for local people that want smaller, more satellite hubs. So that's one of the topics we'll be looking at in the workshop in May, to see how can we sort of get to the compromise of what's the best thing to do. Abstraction. I'm not sure. what to answer that? What's the concern there? Because obviously we're the supplier to farmers, and we're working with farmers where we can about flattening that peak, as I was saying. I'm not quite sure I know the detail of the concern around abstraction and irrigation. What?
Only so much as, you know, water's key input to their business. You know, it's their livelihood, isn't it? So if there are any restrictions on them or just water supply outage, you know, that's you know, doubly damaging for them.
Okay. Well, I think we're trying to work with farmers in the area where they've had problems or where we think they're in areas that are likely to have those pinch points, and I say try and work with them to put some storage on site. That means there's a buffer there if we have these outages, or for them to have their own storage or their own water supplies and things like that. One of the problems we've had, not particularly in this area, but in the last few years, is a number of farms have their own supplies, which can then dry up in the summer. So just as we're in our peak use of demand, they have to transfer on to mains water from their own supply, which then puts more demand on it. So we're trying to understand that more initially and see what we can do to try and, as I say, flattening the peak is really important for us, because quite often, if we can just flatten the peak by 10% for 10 days, that can make all the difference to a widespread outage. So I probably can't answer that any more fully, but that's certainly an area we're looking at.
I think I've just add, you know, food security is becoming more and more of an issue for the country. You know, climate change is driving that more extreme weather, which is going to make times tougher for farmers. You know, you have to speak to the farming community, and you hear that. So just to make sure that, from your point of view, you've got enough kind of people in that engagement team to properly resource all the conversations that need to happen with farmers, because it will need to beef up, won't it, in the months and years ahead, to make sure that they are, you know, communicating with you and they're in the best position they can be. So that, you know, please, you know, make sure that the teams that work with our farming community are properly resourced.
It is a really big area and a challenge for us. And two good examples spring to mind. We have a number of soft fruit farms across the area, and in quite close proximity to each other. We've got one strawberry farm which can use over 3 or 4 megalitres of water a day. Nearby that is another strawberry farm of similar size that uses no water and has managed to be completely self-sufficient on. So there's lessons that we can try and learn and put across, and that's very much, yeah, it's quite a large focus for us.
Yeah, I think it's a really important. We are a very rural area, and we have a lot of potato farmers here. Potatoes is a really important crop, and that's their growing season. Yeah, and they need water, so it would be really good to focus on that. I'm going to, first of all, I'm going to ask Councillor Heaver, are you, do you want to ask about your population growth question, or are you okay with the earlier answer you got? Or do you have, and then I'll come to Councillor Jupe and Smith, who are probably more on this area.
I would like to ask the question because it's slightly more detailed, and I think it's very important in relation to what's being planned in this district. That's right.
Absolutely. So do you want to do that now, or can I go quickly to Councillor Jupe and Councillor Smith, who are probably still on this topic, and then I will come to you?
I know Councillor Jupe and Councillor Smith are always very quick, so I'm happy to let them go first.
All right, great. Thank you. So Councillor Jupe and then Councillor Smith.
I very quickly wanted to offer an apology and a correction. I was incorrect. It's been brought to my attention that you most likely did deliver to schools in Blean and Harbledown. I was thinking of, you know, Blean Primary School and the 2 preschools, but of course they were forced to close. You probably actually did deliver to the private fee-paying school. Kent College? So I was thinking that. And also, I just wanted to add a correction. The lady who wasn't delivered to on the priority register because, and she had to call 111, was actually dying of kidney failure, not liver failure. So I do apologise.
That's okay. Thank you. Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Chair. When we had the summer outages and when you had the terrible stuff over in Tunbridge Wells, God help those residents, I noticed it was for, you know, it was to do with the heat wave and it was to do with the freeze and thaw. But Affinity Water, Southern Water, Thames Water all managed to keep supplying their customers. Is the real reason because South East Water is so far behind with investment in its infrastructure compared to the other water companies?
And I don't think that's the case, and I know that those other water companies were also very, very close to having issues and were working very, very hard. For example, Southern were a few hours away from losing 70,000 customers in Thanet, and that impacted their ability to provide us our bulk supplies. We're a bulk supply receiver from Southern, so for a short period we couldn't receive those bulk supplies. That added to our problems. I know Affinity Water, again, have come very close to large events on a number of occasions. Unfortunately, we're just the other side of the curve on most occasions here, and that's something that's changed in the last 5 years. 5 years ago, I was sitting here with interruptions, issues with burst mains, but nothing like the issues that we're seeing now, which is these extremes of weather and demand fluctuations that cause us the problems. So we have got to catch up, but I don't think we're significantly behind a lot of other companies. It's a very fine balance, and we're just the wrong side of the curve, unfortunately.
Thank you. Okay, so on that note, I'll come back to Councillor Heaver then, and because this sort of ties it all together, because we are seeing these real pressures on our water supply now. So if you'd like to go ahead and ask your question.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I also want to say that I've got real alarm bells running here, and I know residents have as well. Like the other councillors here, I attended the public meeting which Douglas and his colleagues were kind enough to come to on the 15th of October in Whitstable, and I was really alarmed because of the information very eloquently presented, which seemed to indicate that we've got a real crisis in water supply. And then on the 29th of October, I had another meeting which Douglas was kind enough to come at Kent County Council, and again the same alarm bells. You know, water infrastructure, water supply infrastructure is very fragile, particularly in this area. This is a very tight area. There's little headroom. We're going to struggle to supply. And they're not my words. In the 18th of December, I thought perhaps this was unique to this area. These residents are from Canterbury District. Quite rightly, we're focused on their concerns and their worries. But actually, as I then found out, there's councillors all over Kent with exactly the same concerns, exactly the same worries, exactly the same angry residents, or exactly the same style of anger from different residents. And the January outages, I'm just reading off here: Harbledown, Canterbury, Maidstone, Tunbridge Wells, Headcorn, Hollingbourne, the list goes on. It's not unusual, it's not unique, it's becoming commonplace. And I'm getting Groundhog Day. I'm sure the experts on the panel are as well, because they very kindly keep attending these meetings. We present the concern of our residents. We tell them how difficult this is and how we don't have confidence in the system, and nothing changes. And I think we're going to keep having these meetings for the next 5-10 years, or at least until perhaps in this area Broad Oak is completed, and we don't know exactly when that will be. So sorry to go slightly off piece, but it's actually the context of the detailed question, because we're planning on building 23,000 new homes in this district, and whether that's a good idea or a bad idea is not the agenda for this evening. What is the agenda for this evening is, can South East Water supply those 23,000 extra homes when clearly they can't supply what we've got now? And the question about the WRMP 24 is critical, because this is, and you'll correct me if I'm wrong, obviously, the data, the prediction model that South East Water uses to factor in population growth, new housing in the district, and does this all over Kent. And I've seen some of the data from other parts of Kent. It's horrifying, because there's a big gap between WRMP 24 and what local plans want to do. So I'm very keen to know, and it did appear on the graph, and the text was so small I couldn't see it. So if we take a sample year, let's say 2030, or let's say 2034, what's the gap between what the WRMP says you're supplying in terms of population and what the local plan will say, given that it's 1,215 homes per year?
So, looking at the table that we had, I'll bring it back up on the screen. So what we're saying here is 2034, there's a difference of around 1,600 properties in the local plan now compared to the plan that was presented for the figures that we used for the WRMP. So we'll be revising our water resource management plan to outline how we will accommodate that different housing growth number, and that will be done as part of the sort of regular reviews.
So just to be clear, but what was the year again, Donald?
2034, yeah.
2034, there'll be 4,000 people, approximately 1,600 properties using the average occupation rate, 4,000 people in this district for whom there's absolutely no current allocation for water supply at all.
And the current position, but that's what we now need to do, is look at how do we close that gap. Because I say, we are told that is the number that we need to plan for, and we now need to make sure that we can put in the right infrastructure to accommodate that.
But WRMP 24 was only published in October 24.
But it's published in 24, developed in the year prior to that, and that's why they have annual updates, which will hopefully reflect these numbers as we go through. We are getting into areas outside my area of deep knowledge, so we can certainly delve into this at a different time.
Thank you. Obviously, that's a massive concern for me and for the people sitting over here, because we're worried about the situation now. We don't have much confidence in the modelling, not the modelling, but the capacity to deal with population growth. And now we're finding out that even if we really believe in the modelling and the predictions for population growth, actually there won't be enough for 4,000 people anyway. So let's hope they don't turn the taps on.
In the plan that we've currently done, and that's why we've got to go back and understand how we would meet those supplies for those, and there are ways of doing it because there are options further down from Broad Oak, but it will mean bringing those options forward to accommodate those new housing growth, and it will mean different options that were further away would be considered now, so like, as in additional sources or further work on reducing demand. It is a challenging area. I can't shy away from it because it is a challenging area that is a live issue for us at the moment.
And as you quite rightly say, you can't magic it out of the ground.
Thank you very much. And then thank you very much. And we'll take a final question then from Councillor Turnbull.
Thanks. I think it's kind of been answered really. I mean, you're not sort of consulted as part of the planning process. I don't think, are you? As freshwater providers in the way that foul water providers are. I mean, and so I take it from what you're saying is that you don't have that option, like Southern Water don't have the option to say actually we can't cope. We cannot provide the water. It just isn't there. Is that right?
I think we're not a statutory consultee, but we do need to get more involved in these discussions going forward. But we can't resolve all these issues ourselves, because some of the things that will really help that supply-demand balance is going to be around making sure any new housing growth is water efficient, is designed into it, and with grey water and water reuses, and we can suggest that and ask for that, but that has to be a central government planning sort of edict, if you like. So yeah, we're not a statutory consultee, and we can do things to accommodate that, but if assumptions in there around reduction in demand and water efficiency, we can only influence that and not control it. So yeah, it's
What are the water companies actively doing, saying to government, we need to have these measures put into place, and we need to have a bit more say in what's going on here.
Water companies regionally, but we've got a trade body, Water UK, and that's really where all water companies ask Water UK to speak to central government on its behalf, and that's one of the areas that we're asking them to lobby and.
Thank you. And okay, very last question then, Councillor Padgett.
Thank you, Chair. Just to briefly ask, with regards to community engagement, obviously we've had events in Whitstable. Could you give an update on when we may have a community engagement event in Herne Bay, please? Thank you.
Yes, we are looking at this is off the back of the October event. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So we are looking at potentially having an event in Herne Bay. We've had a huge amount of requests for events and meetings off the back of all the incidents that we've had. So we are trying to accommodate those as best as we can at the moment. But we do want to reach all of the areas that are making requests.
Thank you very much. Right. Well, I think we've had our 35 minutes, and we'll now hand over to Southern Water. But I would like to thank you very much, Douglas, and for being here and speaking, and also to Joe and Catherine, and also Dean, who's got away with not saying anything. You've done very well this evening. But I would like to thank you very much, because you have answered questions, and I know we all have. This is deeply concerning to all of us, all 39 members on this council. We are affected by it. And what I think is good, and I hope we can see, is that we started having engagement with Southern Water probably about 5 or 6 years ago with a similar big public meeting in Whitstable that started all of that. And from that, there's now the engagement, regular engagement, and we've just had a motion that's gone through asking for even more stakeholder engagement. And I think if we can have this connection now, that we can ask you questions and scrutinise you, and you're working on plans that whole area you've heard tonight that we're interested in, and that we're being asked by our residents, then that can only be good. and so that we can start to get answers. And hopefully the things that have been happening, if they do happen, they're responded to faster and better, and that they don't happen in the first place. And we know that's a challenge because we're going to hear now from Southern Water. We know all our water resources, particularly in this part of the world, in Sussex and Kent, are a major issue. But we all want to see those improvements as well. So, yes, thank you very much for coming this evening. But I think on behalf of this committee and all 39 members on this council, this is only a beginning. We want to see you a lot more, and we want to have a lot more engagement in the future, not just when things go wrong, but to stop them from going wrong. So thank you very much. Right, we will now move on to Southern Water.
Do you want to?
Yes, do you, are we?
Take a 2-minute adjournment.
Yes, we can take, if you want to, do you want to stay and listen? Or, yeah, yes, good. And then if we have anything else, so we just have a very quick break then. Okay, so thank you once again to South East Water, and now we're going to move to Southern Water, and we have Mike Russell, Paul Blackwell and John Yates, and I'm sure they will introduce themselves as they go through. And again, we're going to have a 10-minute presentation and then Q&A afterwards. So John, you're making the presentation, are you?
Yes,
Yes,
I'm first
okay,
up.
so over to you.
Thank you very much, and thank you for the opportunity to be here. My name is John Yates. I am the Head of Delivery for, and apologies for the long title of this, but I am the Environment Innovations Head of Delivery for the Combined Sewer Overflow Reduction Programme. I know, it's good. But what that really means is I'm accountable for delivering the spill savings that we need to see across our region against our combined sewer overflows to meet the delivery dates of 2027, 2030 and 2035. And we've got to recognise that the reason we have this timescale and the reason we have such a definite number of less than 10 isn't because we woke up and thought it was a good idea. It's because we were held account, and our customers have held us account, which has then led to the regulators holding us to account as a water company. And it has led to us developing a £1.5 billion programme over the next 15 years worth of our investment cycles. Right now, we are just coming to the end of our first year of our 8 asset maintenance period, 8, and it's the first year where we've tried in earnest to reduce spills across our catchments using a regulated framework of delivery, which, as you can understand, is probably really slick and smooth and not. What is really slick and smooth is the way we're working in the region. So in Kent, my team are looking at 125 combined sewer overflows. A combined sewer overflow is ultimately like the overflow in your sink. It is there to protect the network and to protect the houses and the businesses and the environment from flooding during rain conditions and heavy storm conditions. It is a combined system because it includes both foul water and also surface water runoff. My team, whilst we are looking at foul water to make sure it's going to the right places, are fundamentally more interested in where surface water is entering the system and finding a truly sustainable solution to remove it from our foul network and put it into the right place. There is, with this information and accountability we have now, there is very little reason why we should have the surface water in the foul water unnecessarily. And what we're finding across the catchments of Whitstable, Herne Bay, for this scrutiny committee, is there is some really good, sustainable and efficient, and truly sustainable and truly efficient, not just corporate buzzwords of planting a tree or grass, but actually building the right thing in the right place for the right reasons and doing it in the right way means that we can hopefully start seeing some results. So as you can see on this map, the imagery where the purple, green and blue pins, and sorry, I've just realised I can't see anything, so my eyesight must be getting worse. Or I've got to tilt my head, so I need to go to the opticians again. This is all public information. This information is on our Clean Rivers and Seas Regional Plan, which is accessible on the internet and on our website. And it details all of the combined sewer overflows in our catchments from Kent, Sussex, Hampshire and the Isle of Wight, and outlines our investment plan and what we're planning to do. If the pin is purple, it means we're working on it now. If the pin is green, we are meeting the targets. And if a pin is blue, it will be worked on after 2030. But if you click on every pin, it will give a breakdown of the spill savings that are required, the investment, but also the root cause and what we plan to do with the money and the customer's money to invest in those catchments as well. Next slide, please, Mike. In fact, if you just pass me the mouse, because I don't really want to just say next slide all the time. It's just a waste of time. I've just done it back. Hold on. Sorry, I am good at delivery, but not good at IT. So right now, we have a very, very real regulatory deadline of 2027. And that is not far away now. We have 18 months at best, 13 months at worst to meet the regulatory deadline. And in Herne Bay, Faversham, Queenborough, Sittingbourne and Whitstable, these are the catchments we're working in. It's not the number of CSOs that we're working on. In Herne Bay, we're working on one combined sewer overflow, which is at Kings Hall Pumping Station. In Whitstable, we have 3 named combined sewer overflows. We have Diamond Road, Tankerton Circus and and apologies for the naming convention of this as well, but Swellcliffe number 1, which is actually Swellcliffe Longsea Outfall at the treatment works. It's the long one. And across those, Herne Bay at Kings Hall, we have to save 17 spills to get it to less than 10. On Diamond Road, we have to save 20 spills on average, and these are on average against the 2022-2023 year, which was a wet year in the previous 5-6 year period. So that's 17 at Tankerton Circus, 20 at Diamond Road, and 100 at Swellcliffe number 1. The bigger the number, as perverse as this is, the bigger the number, actually the easier it is to start finding the interventions. The smaller the number, as we get closer to less than 10, the more difficult it is to find the interventions, and we have to think and work differently. If we build grey storage tanks first, my team are doing it wrong, because that is not a sustainable solution. That is an easy solution. So we are trying to embed a hierarchy of needs when it comes to our solutions, our interventions. And the first thing we look to do is essentially look in the mirror. Can we operate our system harder, better, faster, stronger than we are now? Is the pipe work going where it should? Are the pumps running as they should? And are we controlling everything in the treatment process as it should? From there, the next thing we do is, can we remove surface water? Can we take it out of the system completely? Can we relocate it? Can we divert it? Can we do something different with it? If we can't remove it, we then look to slow it down. Is there any way, just as the previous guests were saying, is there any way we can take the peak off the way the flow is moving? If we can't slow it down, the next route we go is, can we speed it up? Do we have to build some more assets to move the water faster, to move it from A to B quicker? And then eventually, as we get down, the last resort is us building a storm tank. If we continue to build storm tanks everywhere, we're going to run out of room, and it doesn't work. Now's the time for us to think sustainably, think efficiently, and implement the right thing for each catchment. So, I've got the mouse. What have we done? Well, in Whitstable, by 2030, we'll have invested £77 million into reducing combined sewer overflow usage. Right now, we have already implemented, and this is over the last 12 to 18 month period, we've already implemented significant solutions that are really driving an impact. The first one that you can see there, which is one that we're extremely proud of, is the work at Whitstable Library. In and of itself, it's a relatively small solution, but it actually leads to wider working with ourselves in the catchment. It means that we're having to build relationships with Kent County Council, Canterbury City Council, the residents of Whitstable, the users of the library, in different ways than we've never done before. This is a fantastic element for us, and it shows how we have to work differently in catchments and not just walk in, say we're going to do something and walk away. As well as building Whitstable Library, we have also, or the solution at Whitstable Library, I'm not going to take credit for the building, we've also, in the last year, decimated and rebuilt Tankerton Circus roundabout. And the reason we did that is we have implemented an intelligent gate within the CSO chamber, which unlocks existing storage within the infrastructure without increasing flood risk, but reduces and hopefully will eliminate storms. And in the first storm it experienced, which I believe was Storm Anne, our software was predicting that we would spill for 4 hours and 25 minutes. With the gate being used, we spilt for 19 minutes. And through modelling, we think in the future we'll capture a storm of that size, because we now understand the network, we understand what we can do, and we will make that system work harder, better, faster, stronger. Also at Tankerton Circus, we have removed 10 metres of pipe, surface water pipe, and we have plumbed that surface water into the surface water network. That, in its first month, reduced spills by 30% against the predicted values. It's this type of intervention that we're focusing on and really working on, which means that we're going to have a greater impact when it comes to spill savings versus big capital investment. We're not ignoring capital investment. One of the key things that we're building at Whitstable is a new treatment works on site at the Swellcliffe works. That is to get Swellcliffe outfall and save the 64 remaining spills that are outstanding there. Right now, we've utilised on-site storage to the size of about 4,800 metres cubed. And by doing that, last year we captured 36 storms. That water is not then released to the environment, it's returned back to our system, treated, and only once it's treated does it go back out to the swale and the sea. There we go. In Herne Bay, we have a slightly longer period. We have the 2027 deadline for Kings Hall, but we also have a 2030 deadline for May Street treatment works of itself. We've started this work from August last year, and over the next 5 years, we'll be investing £57 million to bring those spills down. We have already relocated some significant numbers of piped infrastructure, and we have 22 more opportunities to remove surface water from the foul network. We are also working with Canterbury City Council and Kent County Council and the local teams down there, our teams and others, to look at Herne Bay's Mortimer Street and the High Street to see if we can implement sustainable drainage systems, re-greening the systems appropriately, but ultimately build a sustainable drainage feature that will capture the water and remove it from the network. In parallel with these schemes, we have a large gully removal scheme that goes on, or that we've currently got in planning with our teams, not with the planning system itself, but with our team, that will manage the western end of the High Street and Mortimer Street to remove surface water and ensure that the foul system has the foul system and the surface water goes where it is required. All of these are not done in isolation. We have to be working in partnership. We have to have these conversations with Kent County Council, with Canterbury City Council, with special interest groups and user groups of these areas, and more importantly as well, our customers. One key intervention for us is domestic separation, and domestic separation for us is us going to each individual properties owner, requesting access to survey where their drains go, where their downpipes go, and essentially relocate that pipe work if we find it going into the foul system. Right now, and apologies, I couldn't remember these off the top of my head, but right now we have surveyed 13,000 properties across the region, and out of that, 2,000 have been found to be connected to the foul system. And we currently have removed 17 hectares of impermeable area from our foul system into the surface water system. That's a hectare. If it had 5 inches of water on it, the water would weigh 1,000 tonnes. So that's why we focus on the hectares, because it gives us quite a uniform measure for us to remove. We are not here for a good time necessarily in this world. We're here for a long time, and this is a system and a program that only works with meetings such as this and with the accountability from our customers and user groups. If we didn't have this, we wouldn't start building these interventions. And across Whitstable and Herne Bay, we are currently looking into 110 different projects to remove surface water. In terms of Whitstable, we are forecasting that we will save 125 spills against the target. We will manage 14,000 metres cubed of equivalent storage of storm tanks. This is one of the measures that the regulator has put on us, as well as spill savings. We link our interventions back to the equivalent size of a storm tank. Whitstable's target is 11,000 metres cubed worth of storage if we were to build the traditional, and we are forecasting that we will deliver 14,000 metres cubed worth of storage, but by working differently. And it's key for us. Highway SUDS opportunities is a fantastic opportunity that we really encourage both yourselves as Canterbury City Council, but also Kent County Council to work together and look how we can remove traditional road asset infrastructure, gullies, and implement a sustainable, greener, slow the flow or removal structure such as this. This is Gloucester Avenue in, it's called Margate. It's not, it's Cliftonville and technically Palm Bay, for those that know the area. We worked with Kent County Council, Thanet District Council and the residents along this street to replace all the road gullies with these swales. And it is the way that we need to be going. We have fantastic opportunities in both Herne Bay and Whitstable to do this. One of the key opportunities in both Herne Bay and Whitstable are not removal schemes. Unfortunately, it is a clay system. We cannot discharge the water to the ground because it's not going to go anywhere. So we will be utilising swales and green parks, such as Cornwallis Circle, to slow the flow down before it's taken off to the surface runoff is entered back into the foul network and goes for treatment. I know there's been some questions on Cornwallis Circle, so I'll just answer that very quickly now because it links in. To begin with, when we started talking about Cornwallis Circle 3 years ago, we overestimated how easy it would be to work in partnership with everybody. And that's a nice way to saying we've had to realise that there are things to consider that we've never considered before. Cornwallis Circle the design is complete, the teams is ready to build. What isn't complete is who owns it, who's going to maintain it, who's going to look into all of these things. And through working with the councils, we have entered into memorandums of understanding about SUD's assets, who is responsible for maintenance, who is responsible for ownership, and through that we have entered into memorandums of understanding with every authority in our region, and we are now working with councils such as Canterbury to take that and build a sustainable solution. What we don't want to do is build Cornwallis Circle and it goes to ruin because we didn't consider who's going to consider the lawn maintenance, grounds maintenance, infrastructure maintenance, because it is a tripartite solution. We have Kent County Council working on the highways infrastructure, we're working on the sewage infrastructure, and then we have the asset itself of Cornwallis Circle. We do not want to, in any of these solutions, to dare I say, dump and run and feel like we've done a good job. And that forms part of, for us, our delivery cycle. We have a great system where we can build to deliver. The most important thing is what comes after that, and that monitoring. And this is where the agreements, such with Canterbury and with Kent, through monitoring, we can understand the performance and understand if we need to do more. The key thing about the interactive map that I showed at the beginning and comes up now is through our sewer level monitors that we have out there, we've got over 1,000 in this area in itself. We are looking to understand our performance and gauge whether things need to be done and work proactively rather than reactively. And that's our aspiration. We are our first year informally. It's extremely tricky, but we are seeing a difference. Last calendar year across the region, we saved 661 spills. In January this year, the data showing that we're saving over 100 spills. It's yet to be ratified, but through working differently, through bringing on these interventions, we will reduce combined sewer overflow usage, we will remove surface water from our foul network, and eventually we will be treating poo and paper through our network, not everything that goes through the pipes. So thank you for your time. Hopefully that's enough, and I'll pass over to Paul, who's going to talk about future growth and other things.
There we go. That's fair enough. So I'm Paul Blackwell. I am the area plan lead for wastewater in Kent, working for Southern Water. I'm just going to talk a little bit more broadly about some of the other things that are in the AMP8 plan, and my role is kind of planning within that AMP8 period, but also looking at the DWMP, which is a 25-year plan that we'll start consulting on soon. So one of the key areas of investment, as a business as a whole, we need to reduce the amount of phosphorus we discharge from our wastewater treatment works by 50% based on a 2020 baseline by 2028. And we'll be doing that in areas upstream of the Stod Marsh in this district. So places like Canterbury, Westbere and Herne Bay, which discharges to Grove Ferry. We'll be removing phosphorus and nitrogen from the discharge, which those two nutrients promote eutrophication in the water. You get also green algae growth, that kind of thing. It's also, as I understand it, nutrient neutrality in this area, which prevents some house building. So by running those treatment works at the lower standard, we hope to be able to unlock house building that might have been previously refused. Though yeah, that's one area. Next slide. Helpful. Cheers. So in another area, in the Newnham Valley and Downbridge area, we've got some wastewater systems that are particularly susceptible to groundwater infiltration, and the business plan includes removing that groundwater infiltration or sealing our sewer networks so that we don't get sewer flooding and tankering that you see in places like Littlebourne, Barham and Patricksbourne, places like that we're tankering at the moment. So we aim to do around about 25 kilometres of sewer sealing using a novel technique, which is using a chemical called tuba gel to seal the sewers. That's different from our sort of previous approach where we'd used a lining approach. The tuba gel approach should allow us to seal significantly more sewer network and yeah, really prevent that sewer flooding occurring.
Just move your microphone across.
That's what it is. Thank you. I'm almost done anyway, but okay. If you click the next slide for me. And finally, our business plan includes focusing on some coastal sites. So we aim to spend 27 million on coastal resilience. So that impacts a couple of areas here. So Swellcliffe Wastewater Treatment Works and Herne Bay Wastewater Treatment Works, where we've got some assets that are particularly vulnerable to short-term power outages. There's also some pumping stations further east in Kent, Margate and Broadstairs that are getting similar investments. We're aiming to replace the rising main in Gainsborough Drive, which has caused some pollution at Beltinge, and we're aiming to improve operation and maintenance at a couple of pumping stations, Kings Hall and Eddington Lane, as well as some work at the Girl Tank in Whitstable, which at the moment remains part closed. We've got some cleaning work to be done this month, and in the next month we'll look at this option of evaluation in terms of the work that we need to do to reopen that car park and provide the storage that we need at the Girl Tank. I realise that's quite a lot. I'm trying to cover quite a lot in the plan in a short space of time.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes, so we're going to share the slides afterwards. In the appendices, there's lots of detail on all the individual catchments. So there's some links to things like the DWMP in there. So you can have a look at the business plan. You can have a look at where the relevant parts of the DWMP link to the topics I've talked about. Hopefully that might answer some of the questions.
Thank you very much. Can you turn that? That's great. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for speaking this evening and giving us those updates on Southern Water. Councillor Heaver, I think you are the first one with a question for Southern Water about Swellcliffe number 1.
Thank you, Chair. But John and Mike are delighted about that. But nice to see you anyway, gentlemen, again. As they know, I'm a bit sceptical about the good news story, despite the sincere and dedicated work these guys put in at the front line, who are experts in what they do, and we really thank them for doing it. Residents, including myself, aren't convinced about the impact, aren't convinced about the spill reductions, aren't convinced about the measures that are being taken, and aren't convinced there's any hope of meeting the processing or sewage treatment capacity to meet the extra population that's being planned for this district. So my question relates to that, and they won't be the least bit surprised to hear it. But in February 26, this is my own arithmetic, so I'm quite happy to be challenged on it. So last month, despite the impact and despite the spill saving, there were 14 days of untreated sewage discharges from one outfall, Swellcliffe number 1. I reckoned it up to be 169 hours. So, and I think in terms of the famous Olympic-sized swimming pool, I think at 2 and 5 litres per second, that's an Olympic-sized swimming pool every 2 hours, 45 minutes. So for 169 hours, you can do the maths. It's a lot of untreated sewage. As they know all too well, but I'm going to say it again, next to a blue flag beach, into an oyster fishery, into a seaside town, reliant on its coastal economy and visitors coming, and our reputation and economic well-being is at their mercy, or at the mercy of their bosses at least. So the question is, if there's impact, how can we measure it? Where's the evidence of it? And even if the graph is going the correct way, how will we cope with the extra 2,000 houses, again, whatever that is, 5,000 extra people in the catchment for Swellcliffe contained in the local plan, and factoring in climate change as well? You know, how can we be confident that's going to happen?
And Councillor Watkins, your question ties in, so do you want to speak now as well?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I mean, it's been partially addressed, so I'll kind of reword it really. You talked about the plan for Mortimer Street in Herne Bay, but maybe you could just give us an idea of the likely time scale. You know, is it kind of later this year or next year or even the year after that for something to sort of slow the flow to go live, given the problems we've had in that area? And secondly, appreciate this is a hyper localized question, but do you have updates on replacing the missed connections on Beacon Hill, which has been a problem area? Thank you.
Thank you.
I was just taking notes, so make sure I answer it in order. So we'll start with the easy one of Swellcliffe. I agree. We have extremely tight timescales. We have extremely tight deadlines, but we have a very, very clear directive. We have to get those combined sewer overflows to less than 10 spills. And in bathing water seasons, we have even tighter constraints. Can we achieve it at Whitstable? Yes, we have to. The Long Sea outfall currently, Swellcliffe number 1, has an average spill count of 100 per year. Currently, thanks to the work we've done to unlock but not have any detriment, we have reduced it by 36, so 64 spills to go. Can we do that with the work that the catchment is? No, not in and of itself. We cannot stop in the catchment, but we do have to build the new treatment works that is being discussed and has been highlighted at the engagement forums with within the catchment. And our plan is to build a treatment works on the existing site, rebuild it to cope with the flows required to get to the spill saving of less than 10. So currently, sorry, this is where unfortunately my brain ticks into numbers. On a dry day, Swellcliffe will treat 205 litres a second. When it rains, our storm capacity goes up to 760 litres a second. With regards to that, that's why Swellcliffe number 1 is a long sea outfall. Is a combined sewer overflow, and we use the long sea outfall. Whilst the flow does not go through the full treatment process, biological treatment process, settlement, aeration, settlement, UV disinfection, and then out, which is the bathing water standard. It is dilute because it's rainwater. It's above 205 because it's rain, and it is screened. Unfortunately, that is the case. The new treatment works that we build will manage flows of up to 450 litres a second minimum, which is, I believe, 5 times the dry weather flow. And it will ensure that we maintain the flow compliance for the treatment. It will maintain, we meet the spill saving, and it will maintain the biological treatment required for a bathing water and a shellfish area. That work will be done in parallel with the catchment work. So all of the work that we're doing at Tankerton Circus, Diamond Road, Northwood Road 1 and 2 will continue. All of the work that we're doing at Chestfield and at Grasmere Road will continue. It is not a throw our hands up and go, we have to build a new treatment works. It's a no, we have to build the treatment works to meet the target for Swellcliffe and Long Sea outfall. But we also have to continue with the surface water removal, the slow the flow, and all the catchment solutions to make sure that we are building that resilience for Whitstable, essentially.
I'm going to have to drill down into that, I'm afraid, John. Sorry.
Sure. No, 100%.
We want to get to 10 spills per year. Two questions. The first bit, a spill is ill-defined, isn't it? It could be, I'm assuming that could be 100 spills of 5 minutes, or we could have 10 spills of 1 hour, and which would be an improvement unless those spills are defined.
No, unfortunately, the spills are defined.
Okay, fine. We'll move on for that question.
So spills are defined by our regulator and by the Environment Agency.
In terms of a capacity, in terms of cubic litres?
Not as of yet, no. It is a duration. Yeah, the cubic litres are something that we are investigating, and it is something that we are experiencing, and a right and fair challenge across our region. The time is great.
Not a good one for me to bring up, because a spill is not going to be changed by anything we happen in the meeting tonight. But anyway, we'll leave that aside. To get down to 10 spills, are you saying this is achievable by 2027, given the measures you've already got on the deck, on the books, and with the investment you've already had confirmed, will be down to 10 spills, if not by 2027, nearly after that? Or are you saying in order to achieve that we need a new treatment sewage works? Or are you saying in order to keep at 10 spills with the extra population projected, we need a brand new treatment works? I was a bit confused on what we need to reach the targets.
I'll clarify, sorry. To meet the 10 spills, we are building a new treatment works. We cannot build a new treatment works in 18 months, so we are working with the Environment Agency and our regulators on that. But Whitstable, Swellcliffe as we call it, because it's at Swellcliffe, will have a new treatment works built. And as per next week's steering group, I believe there will be dates shared by the team delivering that. I'm sponsoring that. It's part of my remit as spills, but unfortunately it goes to another division in our business. That programme, or at least a high-level date, will be available to be shared.
Sorry to hog the microphone, Chair, but if you give me one more go at this. Well, it's absolutely critical, because we want the spills down to 10. We want the spills down to 10, even though we've got the increased population growth. But I'm learning tonight we'll only get down to 10 after we've built a new sewage treatment works, which you quite rightly say can't be built in 18 months. So is this the equivalent of Broad Oak? This may be in the future. And when is that investment confirmed and in place? And if so, what's the projected timescale for this new capacity to be in place so that we can meet existing demand at 10 spills? And will that also account for the extra 2,000 houses, 5,000 people that will come by 2041?
So, apologies, you might have to get the mic again and clarify one more time. But the funding for the project, the allocation for the project, all of those are included in the business plan that I'm delivering as part of our WINEP deliverables. So it's not a case of kick it down the line or anything like that. We have to do this. The works that have gone into that are currently in concept planning phase. We know what we need to build. We know the size of it. We know the location of it. It's now about the feasibility and the time, because what we can't do is compromise the sewage treatment that's already ongoing. We have a very limited footprint on site, and the sequencing now is the sequencing of what to build and when. So it is going on. I don't have any more details tonight. By Tuesday, I think the meeting is, the steering group. Yep. So next Tuesday, there is the Swellcliffe steering group, which is a quarterly meeting that goes on. The capital delivery team will be there, and this will be one of the areas they're talking about, as well as the Gorrel tank.
So, am I right in saying that until there's a new sewage treatment works, regardless of whether we build one house or 2,000, we're still going to get in the region, or we could quite conceivably get 169 hours during a wet February, because it'll take a while for those other measures to take impact? In other words, where are we without a new sewage treatment works? Because obviously we haven't got one, we haven't got a date for one, so let's just tell us where we are without it.
So right now, in terms of Swellcliffe Longsea Outfall and the catchment area that feeds, so that one is fundamentally fed by everything in Whitstable. Tankerton Circus is currently performing and is on track to meet its less than 10 because of the slow the down and removal, as is Tankerton Circus, Diamond Road and Tankerton Circus. We are also working in the Chesterfield catchment to carry out domestic separation. All of these are going to have a positive impact on the spill reduction at Swellcliffe. What we are doing right now is building the models to give that definite answer. I can't give that right now because we are in the first round of understanding that combined impact. But to get to Swellcliffe to less than 10, there is the need to build the new treatment works. So we have reduced them. We've already reduced the spill count from 100 down to 64. And we will continue to hopefully improve on that number But the new treatment works is going to be the thing that will give us that resilience to mean that we'll be at less than 10.
I don't think we're going to get any more there. You're just going to go around and so. But so thank
No,
you very,
let's go on to the harder
thank
question.
you very
Mortimer
much,
Street.
John. Yeah, no.
So Mortimer Street right now, for us, we have concept designs built. They should be shared, and as part of our sustainable drainage scheme, they should be shared with Kent County Council and other interested parties. In terms of the build, this is one of the schemes that we know has to be done, but we have time to deliver it. So what we do not want to do against the 2027 output is rush this scheme and end up with something that isn't going to be the value that it requires to be. So this is another scheme in parallel, very much like the answer for Whitstable, where all of the gully separations, all of the Beacon Hill misconnections, which are ongoing, all of those elements will aid in the reduction of spills from Kings Hall pumping station. But Mortimer Street and the Beacon Hill SUD scheme as well are fundamentally key for us to slow the flow and control that flow in a more sustained way rather than send it all to Kings Hall. So it's in concept design right now. I can share dates with the programme manager about that if it's not included in the slide deck. With the Beacon Hill misconnections, that's part of the 22 that we have out and running, as well as the domestic separation of properties as well. So it is a programme that builds, and with the work that we're currently doing right now at Kings Hall, we, from a hectares area point of view, we are on track with the interventions that we've got to meet that and therefore meet the spills target as well. Yeah, I think that was more.
No, thanks. That's pretty comprehensive. I will read the appendix with interest, and you can certainly expect an email from me if it doesn't have those dates.
We'll share the concept designs and dates.
That'd be great if you could send those as well. So yeah, thank you, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. And before I come to you, Kat, is it really, because very, very quickly, because then I'm coming to Councillor Bland.
It's a drop in the ocean in comparison to these guys. I know. In comparison to these guys' really technical questions, I really just want to know when I can take the kids to the sea without having to check an app. No. Ever? Or am I going to have to check to see whether it's one of the 10 spills?
Unfortunately, that's why we have Rivers and Seas Watch. That's why we have our Surfaces Against Sewage. The app is there to increase our intelligence for us to make the decisions that we have. In terms of when you're going to be able to check it, by 2027, in the most part, the CSOs that have that deadline will be at less than 10. We have tighter constraints during bathing water seasons as well, where we can't spill any more than, I think, 1 or 2 times in those bathing water areas. It comes down to, for me...
You can't, but you do, right?
Sorry?
You can't, but you do sometimes.
Can't, but do what? Have spills to the environment.
Yeah, so you said you can't have more than 2 in bathing times.
That's what our regulators and that's the target.
But you do, and you have been fined, right?
A spill is not a pollution. There is a difference. So a spill on a combined sewer overflow is not a pollution. A pollution event and a fine is a breach of permit. So we are fined for pollution events, but that is something where we have not met the permit to operate at the works. A spill at a combined sewer overflow is there to protect and to ensure that anything upstream is at no detriment effect because of the water that is the infrastructure is receiving.
So it's not, I know it's not that, but I mean, there'll still be stuff that will give you a tummy ache.
There will, but that's where the Environment Agency's pollution forecast, risk pollution forecast comes in. That's where Rivers and Seas Watch comes in. That's where this intelligence and transparency is important, because it allows us as individuals to make decisions about what we want to do.
So that's really sad. I'm always going to have to check an app before I go for a paddle.
Well, yeah, I mean,
thought
it's
there would
not
be an end date to that.
It's not an end date, but if we've got regulatory targets of 2027, 2030, and 2035 to meet these spills targets, and we have the opportunity to share our performance live and with these apps, that gives us as individuals the empowerment to make that decision. Personally, I'd rather have the information there and then make the decision than not have the information there. I'm sorry, that's my own personal view.
Thank you. Right, we have a few minutes left, so can I go very quickly to Councillor Bland and Councillor Smith, and then Councillor Paget, but very, very quickly, please, because we've got to move on to our other report. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Chair. I'm a councillor for one of the councillors for Chartham and Stone Street. So we've heard a lot about the coast, but there is also a big river that is rather important to us. So my question's in relationship to the River Stour. Now, you stated in July 2025, or Southern Water did, that your turnaround plan had reduced the overall number of wastewater pollutions by 40%. Yet data shown in a 2024 report showed that Southern Water was only one of 3 companies, Thames, yourselves and Yorkshire, responsible for 81% of the most serious incidents, and that in 2024 Southern Water was responsible for 15 serious incidents, an increase from the previous year. As well as there being a 32% increase in all pollution incidents by Southern Water. Can you explain precisely how your turnaround plan has reduced the overall number of pollutions, given these figures for 2024, and whether this reduction includes serious incidents or not? And whilst I would not recommend it, I'd ask, would you be happy for one of your children to swim or splash around in the River Stour?
I'm going to unfortunately have to tag Mike in for this because it's not my area of expertise as part of the turnaround plan. But what I would like to just offer on that, and it links back to what we've just been saying previously, I think information is key about our performances. You're 100% right. We've spoken a lot about the coast, and I've just made reference to an app that's called Rivers and Seas Watch. That's vital for me as part of combined sewer overflow, usage reduction, because it enables us to work inland and look at all of the waterways and not just the coastline. As part of that, we are working in Harbledown, as that's our next catchment for myself, where we are looking to manage 11 spills. And as part of that work, I'll be working with a team that sits alongside me called Catchment Resilience, which looks at all of the usage of land around rivers and working in partnership with them. So agricultural runoff, industrial runoff, car runoff, all of those elements as well. So I'd like in future to give you a better, more comprehensive answer, but I will tag in Mike for that. When it comes down to rivers and the quality of those, as part of my remit is the Section 82 deliverable, which is the continuous water quality monitoring up and downstream of outfalls. So when it comes down to making choices, again, we are working on a programme of works that will increase our intelligence to understand exactly what the impact is from outfall usage, whether that be consented or unconsented, and therefore what other work we have to do as part of the combined overflow reduction plan to improve the quality of our waters. You know, my team is called the Clean Rivers and Seas Task Force. Our remit is to improve the rivers and seas. So with regards to our pollutions, I'll either tag Mike in or we can have a more robust conversation offline with more information or with the right people. But we know we need to improve. That's why we have a turnaround plan. And we know that our performances previously haven't been where they should be. And I've been at Southern Water for 15 years and I can only talk for myself. There have been times where I've questioned whether we're doing the right thing. And I'm really proud of the work that we're doing. It's very difficult. It is, as you've heard, it's very sensitive when you work with water. We take it for granted, and we don't think about flushing the toilet until we can't, and we don't think about the drinking water that we have access to until we don't have it. What's key for me is that through the accountability from our customers and from our stakeholders is that we continue to be transparent, continue to have opportunities like this, and have the opportunity to say, I don't know, but let's work together and let's find out what that answer is, and hopefully, improve the situation and articulate the fact that we are improving. But it is hard work and it isn't the easiest, but we are improving.
Okay, I won't take too much more time, but just a supplementary, and thanks for your comments there. I mean, it does seem to me when people and the ordinary public are looking at all the reports around pollution, etc., and we've already touched on this, and the last discussion about it touched on that as well. There's a confusion in the terminology about what goes on. So, what is an overflow, what is a spill, what is a sewage dump, how are these being monitored, and different agencies appear to use slightly different terminologies. And I think this is something the government in its recent report and the whole thing ought to take on this, to make sure that there's a common language, a common understanding that ordinary people can access and get hold of and understand what's going on. So that's one thing I'd say is very important, to work with the Environment Agency and feedback to the government, a good common language that ordinary people can understand exactly what you're talking about and exactly what you're saying, because it can get really difficult. And you can't just rely on great websites like Top of the Poops to get the right numbers for sewage in the rivers and stuff like that. So that's one thing. But the other thing I'd say, I'm really glad that you've said it, because I was impressed when you were talking about SUDs in respect of car parking and stuff like that. But I'm really glad that you're talking about and thinking about the edges of rivers. And there's opportunities there to work with farmers about trying to make sure there's a clear edge from the bank of a river into the field, which is got sufficient biodiversity and all the rest of it to prevent runoff from actual industrial farming, if you wish. And so I'm glad that you're going to be doing that, and I look forward to hearing some progress on that, because I can see an awful lot of banks on the River Stour that could actually be moved, there could be a verge moved back, and that would actually be helpful to the river. Yeah, thanks for that, and I mean, that's really important, especially as we desperately need to reduce phosphates in the river going on the way down to Stodmarsh and so on. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bland. And Councillor Smith.
Thank you, Chair. Last week we had a full council meeting where we actually did a motion about getting a stakeholder group for South East Water, similar to the Southern Water one. When I went home, I couldn't get into my up to my home because Southern Water were there. I was like, oh God, not blocked drains. What's going on? Actually, you were there throwing dye down drains to look and see where things were at 9:30 at night. So you're actually out there working. I was quite impressed. And I know that the lorries have been all over Sea Salter for the past few weeks looking at where connections are going. I don't quite understand what that does. So I was hoping that you could give me, what the testing is undertaking and what it reveals, because does it mean that the water will just go straight out to the sea? When it rains, it'll go straight out to the sea. And if it goes into the fowl, it overfills the tanks that pushes it out with sewage. And that's the problems we have. All this dye that you're sending down, what will you do with it?
This is good. So I'm really glad that we blocked you from getting home. And it's really nice to hear, because actually it's my team doing that. So that's excellent. So what we do is, before we carry out any work and before we even think about what the solution is, we understand what the water is. So I'm relatively simple. I ask my team to look, see, find. We don't worry about the do until we know what we're talking with. And the dye is a water-soluble, safe dye. It is, unfortunately, this is the second or third time I've had to have this conversation, which is good. But if you're seeing bright, luminous green dye in the network, that isn't waste. It is not toxic. It is not anything, and it's a good thing. We had this, I think, at the last Swellcliffe steering group 4 months ago, where the Swellcliffe book was all of a sudden luminous green, and that caused some great panic. So that's a failing on my team's part and my part, because we're not communicating what we're doing well enough. We are not pouring that dye into foul networks. We're actually pouring that dye into surface water networks. So the team that was outside your house lifted the manhole open, that would be a surface water area. That dye goes into that dye at the appropriate level in terms of quantity. And if we trace that all the way back to a watercourse, river or sea, then that surface water network is connected exactly where it should be. If, what you probably didn't see because you were at home and being 9:30 at night, hopefully there's somebody at the other end of that pipe looking for it. Yes, there was. Good, phew, because it would have been a quick one. If that is the case, that's great, because it's going where it should go. If we find it in a foul network, that's actually what we call a misconnection. It isn't an illegal connection. An illegal connection, yeah. They're misconnected. So an illegal connection is where you have foul sewage water going into a surface water line, which is a pollution. Whereas surface water going into a foul line is a misconnection. It's been done for the right reasons at the right time. It's just not the right time now for it to be there. So ideally, before we do anything, and we've grown exponentially since I've met some of the councillors on this panel, we've grown from having one engineer in Whitstable who lives in Whitstable to having 3 engineers, 5 technicians and a team of project managers in the region building those plans. So part of the 49 interventions that we do build where that goes. Now, when we've found the dye in the right place or in the wrong place, and we come up with a suggestion to move surface water out of the foul network into the surface water network, we don't just do it, because we do not know the effects of doing that. So we carry out E. coli testing, ammonia testing, contaminant testing to make sure that when we eventually move the water, for surface water from the foul to the surface water, we're not going to have a detrimental effect. What we don't want to do is find actually we've got a surface water connection, but there's E. coli or there is ammonia in there. We don't want to put that back into the natural environment straight away. We want to try and work out where that's coming from and then remove it. So what we try and do, and it is the word of our industry, is have a no detrimental effect. But what we really want to do is not make anything worse. So when my team are out there pouring dye and it's not going into the watercourse and it's not green, we carry out significant work to understand what the consequences of any interventions are before we even do it, in short. So it's good. At least it's there. At least, you know, hopefully they're all in their right PPE and they're all in orange. Yeah. Good. Few. That means... no, well, we'll find out. It's good.
Thank you very much. Right, we have one very final quick question, please, and then we need to move on. So...
Thank you, Chair. Previously, there was a proposed citizen science project along the coast. Are you able to give an update on that, please?
Yes, 100%. So citizen science is key for us. We have had a number of localised, and when I say localised, I don't mean within Whitstable or Herne Bay, but I mean regionally. We've had lots of local interest groups. So in Whitstable, SOS Whitstable, we're carrying out our testing from a citizen science point of view. That was as part of Pathfinder. What we've done is, and we've reassessed it and removed ourselves from it fundamentally, and kind of set up citizen science as an independent thing. I'm going to get it wrong, so I'm going to tag Mike in. It's the University of Surrey. Sorry, I kept calling it Sussex and got told off. The University of Surrey, and we've commissioned them to work in Folkestone, and I believe it's starting now, this month, or certainly over the next week, to have a independent, robust citizen science portal that we will roll out. Citizen science is a key thing for us to not lose. We need it. We want people who are passionate about their own beachfronts to be engaged in that, and we appreciate that it's Southern Water. You know, we'd much rather work with University of Surrey. Good. Yes, University of Surrey than do it on our own. We want it independent. We want it scrutinisable. We want to be undeniable with that. So it's something that's definitely on our radar.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Right, well, I think at that point we've probably, well, very, very quick. Go on then.
Thank you, Chair. It was to come back and build upon the questions of Councillor Dupe and Councillor Bland. You kept talking about the benefits of the apps and how knowledge and information from those apps is important and helpful. It is at the moment, but what would be really empowering is not to need the apps, because there weren't any spills and we can happily go in the water whenever we want without fear.
Yes, in short, you know, but on the other hand, information is king, and transparency is key for that. So I'd much rather say it's there, and if we're in a position in 2035 when we've completed this programme and everything is less than 10 or down to 0 in some places, great. We will have that information and it will be out there. I'd much rather be in that position than be in the position that the industry was in when I first joined, where we operated a closed gate policy on everything, not just from a security and health and safety point of view, but from an information flow point of view. You know, we are not water companies, we are environmental companies whose product is water. We have to think differently. And that means that it's not the company's water that we work on, It's our water as human beings, and therefore the information is ours. So if it's there and it's shareable, why not share it?
Okay, thank you. But app's not the answer. Clean water is the answer.
Yeah. So I appreciate its time, but what I would like to do, and it's something we've discussed and internally and externally as well, but I'd like to take this committee or as many as yourselves elected members, let's have a day out in Whitstable so you can see what we've done, and we can have really targeted questions and answers about this, because we've discussed it a lot, and now's the time where we can do it. You know, whichever constituency, whichever area you want that we're in, please let us know, and we'll get a list together, and we'll put that day on, and we'll be able to show you what we're doing.
Thank you very much, John. I think that's something that many of us would like to do. And I know Councillor Paget asked the question of South East Water as well about the engagement in Herne Bay, but it also would be really good to have Southern Water come to Herne Bay and take part in that engagement as well.
So just on that, Your Water Matters is the key function for us. So next week, I think it's the 11th, we have our Your Water Matters in Margate. We had a Your Water Matters event January in February in Whitstable. So yeah, so we are making our way around all of the catchments that we were in, because you know, it was very tricky at first. It's very scary being held to account. It's not nice, but it's the right thing for us to do, and it's certainly something that us as a business have committed to and is working.
Yeah, thank you. Well, yes, we remember some of those early meetings, but yeah, thank you very much. But I would just like to thank Mike, Paul and John for being here this evening from Southern Water and for answering questions and updating us. And again, I'd like to thank South East Water for being here this evening. We'll now continue with our report, council report on water. So if you want to leave, then you're very welcome to. And I think we will obviously continue these conversations outside this committee, but this is a first step towards that engagement. And as we said, we have had the motion to set up a stakeholder group as well with South East Water. So thank you very much for being here this evening. Thank you. Right, okay, we won't have a break now. We're going to continue. So we're now going to invite our public speakers to come and speak. And our first speaker is Dr. Ian Goodall, who's Stour Monitoring Programme STOMP Research Group. Thank you very much. You're right, I've got the... Thank you very much. Yeah, see you soon. Thanks, Joe. Thank you very much.
Hi, thank you. Good evening. My name is Dr. Ian Goodall. I work for a couple of local universities, and I'm here representing the Stour Monitoring Programme Research Group. We run multiple work packages covering different pollutant classes, but tonight I'll quickly brief on E. coli and the nutrients nitrogen and phosphorus found in the Stour. From September 2023, we've been sampling weekly at 16 locations across Canterbury, including areas of high riverside use, Toddler's Cove, Westgate Gardens, Greyfriars, St Redigan's Riverside area. Between October 2023 and September 24, we collected over 900 water samples, which we analysed for E. coli and intestinal bacteria, and we found the 12-month median average background level of E. coli to be around 1,200 colony-forming units per 100 millilitres of water sample, with intestinal coliform levels between 2 and 3 times higher still. Under the Environment Agency bathing water quality standards, this is rated as poor, with river water quality not meeting the minimum standard. 220 water samples were randomly selected from high-use sites for further multi-drug antibiotic resistance testing. These were exposed to sulfamethoxazole trimethoprim combination antibiotic, with 22% of samples producing viable E. coli colonies. Of these multi-drug resistant colonies, around 10% showed resistance to polymyxins and 20% showed resistance to carbapenems, which are both antibiotic classes of last resort. In summary, we can show that there are elevated levels of E. coli in the river within high-use zones in Canterbury, and with the presence of antibiotic-resistant strains, there is a non-zero risk to river users of contracting potentially serious infections. Moving on to the nutrient pollutants, nitrogen and phosphorus, the Stour connects multiple nature reserves, sites of special scientific interest, and the internationally significant Ramsar Stodmarsh wetland site. Natural England targets for total nitrogen in Stodmarsh Reserve have been set at 1.5 milligrams per litre for favourable condition status. However, we see them over 18 months averaging 8.8 milligrams per litre, more than 6 times higher than the favourable condition. Phosphorus is also in an equivalent situation. The Water Framework Directive limit for good ecological status is set at 49 micrograms per litre. And between September 24 and February 26, we observed an 18-month median average of 120 micrograms per litre, or 2.4 times the good ecological status limit. Quoting Natural England, there are high levels of nitrogen and phosphorus input to this water environment with sound evidence that these nutrients are causing eutrophication as part of these designated sites. With developments poised to go along the Stour system, expanding use of biosolids as fertiliser replacements, we are inevitably looking at further negative impacts on flora and fauna in the Kentish Stour. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Goodall. And thank you. Can I invite our next speaker, please, Hallie Ranthwaite from Kentish Stour Countryside Partnership. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Hallie Ranthwaite, and I'm a river officer with the Kentish Stour Countryside Partnership. Today, I am representing the Friends of the Kentish Stour, a newly formed working group which is uniting community members and organizations in support of the River Stour and its tributaries. Our group is deeply concerned about the state of our local rivers, and we are coming together to ensure they receive the protection and the respect that they deserve. Tonight's report clearly states that the Great River Stour is an important chalk stream valued for the clarity of its water and for the wildlife that it benefits. It is a source of local pride to live alongside such a rare chalk stream, of which there are just over 200 in the entire world. However, the reality is that this important chalk river is experiencing major problems that the current institutions and legislation are failing to address. As Dr. Goodall so clearly laid out in his presentation, these issues require immediate attention. We hope that this council will support us because these issues transcend party lines. Whether you're most concerned about the public health risks of community members falling ill after coming in contact with the water, or you're wanting to achieve nutrient neutrality in order to unlock additional housing developments, or perhaps you're more worried about the impacts poor water quality is having on wildlife. There is a real need to come together to address the current gaps in river protection because they affect us all. The Friends of the Kentish Stour is doing just that, bringing together concerned locals and stakeholder organizations to identify how the current protections are failing and to create a charter for the Kentish Stour which will address these gaps. We've already begun to mobilize and engage communities along the river, allowing local priorities to shape the creation of the charter. The group originated from the Great Stour River Fest in September 2025 during a Rights of Rivers event. The idea was first discussed at an East Kent Catchment Improvement Partnership meeting. The group now consists of 35 members from a range of communities within the Canterbury district, as well as further afield in Wye, Wingham, and Faversham. The group contains representatives from various parish councils and various other organizations, including Natural England, South East Water, and the Stodmarsh Nature Reserve. And we've recently received statements of support from Affinity Water and the Kent Wildlife Trust. Our initiative is gaining momentum, and we're looking to other English rivers like the Sussex Ouse and the Kentish Medway for guidance from other local authorities who have passed motions acknowledging the rights of their rivers. We are keen to work with you, members of the council, to produce a charter for the Kentish Stour which this council can endorse. We would love to hear from any of you who can help with taking this forward, and we would welcome participation from councillors on the working group. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Roundthwaite. Thank you. And can I invite Alan Atkinson from Bridge Parish Council and Little Store River Group? Thank you, Alan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I noticed when you opened, you talked of the sea, you talked of the Stour. You didn't actually talk at all of groundwater. You didn't mention that. And we currently have a flood alert for groundwater in the Nailbourne Valley. It's a very significant, very difficult situation. The lady talked of a road being closed for 2-3 times a day, 2-3 days, 3-4 times a year. When there was a big flood alert in 2014, we had 113 continuous days on alert. Roads are closed. The residents have to exit their homes and drive out almost directly onto the A2, things like that. We have roads closed and bridge now. The groundwater is rising at the rate of about 0.2 of a metre per day. It's not an insignificant event. Your engineering team in Canterbury does do a sterling job, but they are reactive. They don't have the authority to take things on themselves. So Mr. Wilston's team do a great job, but the actual authority is the Kent County Council. They're the flood lead authority. We see flooding frequently. We are concerned that there may be flooding again this year. I circulated some photographs of what happens. The sewage pipe, for example, gets inundated. We can't go to the toilet. We can't put any waste into the waste pipe. I don't know what Southern Water talking about. They didn't mention that either. We have tankers on our roads. The little rural roads around Canterbury get blocked with their tankers. We simply have to use the bathroom by appointment because they have to empty the pipe work first to take it into the works at Sturry and so on. We haven't mentioned any of this problem tonight. We're going to talk about water, but actually a large part of this district actually lives on the chalk, is actually subject to flooding from groundwater and is subject to flooding this week and from groundwater. It has already begun again. And I would like you to do a couple of things. First of all, when you talk about water and the situation and such like, remember that groundwater flooding is a significant thing. It is a lovely countryside, but it has its own peculiar geology. Try and understand the nature of the chalk. So, for example, when your planning department issues permits for 300 houses at Beaksbourne, remember, Bourne, the clue's in the name, Beaksbourne, for example, you've got to think, well, how's the pipework going to cope with that? Because the current pipework is not coping as it is. It gets inundated by the rising groundwater and we get flooded. And finally, try to apply some pressure to the, not just Kent County Council, but to the Environment Agency. They actually are the authority that permits Southern Water. You heard the chap talk about, he's gone now, talk about they get issued permits or they get fined by the Environment Agency. They're the people who are actually in charge. I hope this evening's been an interesting information gathering exercise for you all, but the actual people in charge are Kent County Council and Environment Agency. You have some soft power, you don't have any authority, I think, in the matter. Please use it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Atkinson. And we have a report in item 8. And it actually will look at some of the other rivers and water systems across the district that we haven't covered so far. And I would like to invite Senior Environment Manager Martin Hall and Claire French from the Engineering Department to make any points about the report that we have before us.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, councillors. So, yes, you've had the report. I'm not going to dwell on every item in there. Hopefully it tells a relatively positive story. interesting hearing from public speakers about coming together. The first thing we talk about in the report is actually thinking about the Canterbury Riverside Group, which actually met this afternoon. We had a really interesting agenda, talking through many issues to do with the urban river in Canterbury, but also Broad Oak and other matters like that. So that is extremely useful with stakeholders coming together with the City Council to move things forward. That work is coordinated and guided to some extent by the Canterbury Riverside Strategy, which does champion the work that we're doing on the river. And both that group and the Riverside Strategy was very key to the establishment of the Riverside Festival that we heard about just a moment ago. So community groups are looking to see how that Riverside Festival can continue. It's been run for 3 years now, and each year it's moving closer and closer to being owned and managed solely by the local community, and they're doing a great job in that handover. So one of the other key things that's coming forward at the moment you may be interested in is some work that the Kentish Stour Countryside Project are doing, a Heritage Lottery Fund bid called Stour Valley Restore. They are seeking funding at the moment for what's called the development phase. And if that's successful, then we will move into delivery. I understand we hope to hear soon about that. Many stakeholders and partners are involved in this bid, looking at a wide section upstream and downstream of Canterbury of the River Stour. And I'm sure we'll see some great projects coming forward, and Canterbury City Council's looking at trying to put in some match funding alongside some funding we've got for sites that we're currently looking at managing, which are listed in the scheme. One of the key conversations I'm having with South East Water is about how they can achieve biodiversity net gain at 20% on the Broad Oak Reservoir. So that's an ongoing conversation. It is challenging for them, but they are working with the Canterbury City Council to see how they can achieve that. I'm going to jump on a little bit because of time. We heard from Southern Water about some of the schemes in Mortimer Street and Beacon Hill and also Cornwallis. So it's my team, along with property, that's been discussing those matters with Southern Water over the last 3 years. Progress has been a bit slower than you might have thought from what's been talked about there, but we are working very closely with them, and it's us that's been raising that issue about the long-term ownership. So they can't just come in, create something and then disappear. We need to understand who's going to be responsible for that, and critically, who also resources that. So that's something that, yes, that has come from me, but I think that that's appropriate for that scheme going forward. And I think the last thing I'll say from the report is another success area is the sea salter levels work. So coastal wetland site where Canterbury City Council, Swale Borough Council and the RSPB have just completed a 6-year partnership project where they've been looking at undertaking compulsory purchase orders of small plots of land to amalgamate those to enable them to establish grazing and water level management across a much broader area. So the project is possibly nearly unique in the country of using CPO powers to deliver environmental gain, very much led and managed by the RSPB. And on their site now, as you drive down, coming out of Whitstable, past Rakehill, you can see how wet those salt marshes are, or sorry, not salt marshes, the freshwater marshes. And we're seeing increased numbers of red shank and lapwing breeding on those, which is always what the key was. So lots of different things going on, which are hinted at across the report. So thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Martin. And Claire?
Thank you. I was just going to touch on the River Stour Internal Drainage Board, the District Sea Defences and river and coastal flooding. And we'll have a short update on the Nailbourne as the situation has changed since the report was published. So firstly, the River Stour Internal Drainage Board manages over 200 kilometres of watercourses across East Kent, which is mainly agricultural and rural areas. Councillor Carnac and Liam Waterton, which is Head of Engineering, represent Canterbury on the IDB board. The board undertakes routine maintenance such as weed cutting, desilting, vegetation management, and to maintain flows and reduce flood risk. And it works closely with the councils and Environment Agency, providing planning advice where development may impact the land drainage. Over the past 18 months, Canterbury's engineering team has delivered over £1.4 million of DEFRA-funded improvements for the IDB, which has provided a fee income of approximately £60,000 for the council. Moving on to the district's sea defences. So Canterbury's coastline is well defined and our sea defences are maintained by the in-house engineering team. They protect 11,600 homes, which includes 27,000 residents from flooding and erosion, which compared to the other coastal authorities in England, we have the longest groined shingle beach in the country, we have the most timber groins and the most floodgates to operate and manage. Our assets and adaptation plans assess the condition of the defences and the future requirements of our frontages for Whitstable and Herne Bay, and they consider options such as beach replenishment, new structures and seawall upgrades that would be required into the future. Our engineering team has secured millions of pounds of Environment Agency flood defence grant in aid to deliver these key schemes. And the council also lead on the South East Regional Coastal Monitoring Programme, which collects and analyses beach data for Isle of Grain to Eastbourne. The Faversham Road sea salter frontage is one of the district's most vulnerable coastal areas, with 65 properties located seaward of the main defence, and they are subject to historical and ongoing flood risk. This is managed by the Environment Agency, and the primary flood defence is the landward side of the properties. The Shoreline Management Plan sets a medium-term hold-the-line approach to 2025 before shifting to manage realignment in recognition with the longer-term risk. And the Council's local plan states that the Council will not permit replacement dwellings or extensions to existing dwellings along Faversham Road. Further studies, public consultation and government funding are needed to determine the best technical, environmental and economic options for the realignment of the defences, but the Environment Agency has not set out any timelines for this yet. Coastal and fluvial flooding. Our coastal defences provide a 1 in 200 year standard of protection, and the round-the-clock emergency response is provided again by the in-house engineering department. We constantly monitor the tides, the rivers and the weather's conditions, and we close and operate floodgates and coastal and river sluices to manage both the tidal surges and the river levels. In the past 5 years, there have been 45 coastal flood alerts and 62 flood alerts on the River Stour. Sea levels have risen approximately 10 centimetres in the last 30 years, and the sea level rise is factored into our long-term planning. Just a quick note on the Nailbourne, as it's progressed since Liam's written this report. Following very heavy rainfall in January and February, the Nailbourne is in full system flow. The Little Bucket borehole is currently sitting at 82.7 metres, and the rate of the rise has slowed over the past week. We deployed our flood barriers in South Barham on the 10th of February, and we carried out strategic sandbagging. We've also had to close floodgates in Barham, Bishopsbourne and Bridge. Liam keeps in close contact with key stakeholders like Mr Twyman and Mr Atkinson and the parish councils with the Nailbourne River Group, and we continue to work with the Environment Agency to try and help reduce the flood risk. We pushed for the Environment Agency to operate the Littlebourne flood relief channel earlier than they perhaps would have, and this has made quite a big difference this year. The most important thing is, I suppose, that we have robust plans, experienced staff to deal with the coastal and fluvial flooding within the district, and we do know the Nailbourne very well. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Do we have, yes, Councillor Smith.
Thank you. It's a question for you, I think, Claire. I'm a Sea Salter Ward councillor, and we've been pushing to get a leaflet out for Faversham Road residents because there is that amnesia about what the situation is there. People have forgotten that the sea defence is behind them. And I mean, people still buy houses there and don't get advised because people buy for cash quite often, and they don't take, you know, some sort of surveys and stuff like that, and the estate agents don't tell them. So people really don't understand that given a storm that they could lose those homes. They're let out as Airbnbs. It could be in the middle of the night on a spring tide with a northeasterly storm, and it will wipe people. I mean, some of those homes are very ready to go. And what is happening to that leaflet that was going to be sent out to all the residents?
Yeah, sorry. I can apologise. It's in draft form and it is actually ready to go. I think we just haven't pushed the button. So I will. It's there. There was a lot of back and forth between us and the Environment Agency. Obviously, it's our frontage, but EA managed. But it's something that we should push forward. And as for the middle of the night, I will comment, we do door knocking when we think they're super high tides, just because we know that a lot of them aren't actually occupied most of the year round. And the best responses we get are from those renting saying, thank you, because the water was pretty close to the back door.
Do we have a record of the ownership of the homes? Do we know if we've got that? So because nobody's there, do we know who these owners are? I mean, I guess that would be for a council tax office, I guess, won't it, people?
We don't as a department.
Thank you. Councillor Turnbull.
Thank you, Chair. I've got a question for Martin and then a couple of questions for Claire. Is it okay? Shall I just do them all now? So, Martin, you've got exploring nutrient neutrality measures on council-owned sites. I'd like you to just sort of explain that a bit more to me, if you can. I'll just do my other two questions for Claire. One was about the flood incidences, so more coastal flood alerts. That you're saying that there've been, how many there've been in the last 5 years, and the flood alerts for the store as well. Has it increased? Is it increasing over time? Is what I wanted to know. And the other question was, well, listening to the speaker from about the nail-borne, is there anything that can be done to prevent this happening, or is it just something which is a fact of life and which nothing can be done about? Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Turnbull. So I'm becoming increasingly aware of opportunities around nutrient neutrality. Natural England about 6 months ago produced a really long report, but a very decent report about ditch management, ditch creation and things like that for addressing both phosphate and nitrate chemicals in the water courses. And some of the things that we may be looking at on some of our sites along the Stour, where it's appropriate, where we were going to be doing ditch work anyway as part of either funding schemes or just to improve the management of those sites, is to see whether we can tweak the design of the ditches to reflect the Natural England studies to maximise their benefits for nutrient neutrality. And quite simply, you can do a ditch like that, which is probably what I would have done a year ago. If I do a staged or stepped ditch, according to Natural England and studies that they've been doing, that has a much more effective role. Whether we capture that with respect to this Stour Environmental Company and things like that, I don't know yet, but I certainly want to make sure the designs of what we're doing are maximising the ability to contribute towards nutrient neutrality. Thank you.
Hi. So if I take the first one with the increasing flood alerts and warnings, I don't have a direct comparison. It's something I could probably try and look at, but I suppose my opinion is that it's something that will increase as time goes on because the defences aren't being adapted in sort of. If you're going to adapt sea defences, it's sort of a long-winded process, and sea level rise is obviously increasing as time's going on. So I would expect it's certainly something we'll see more of going forward around the entire country. The second one, in relation to the nail-borne, obviously it's a natural born that's been there longer than any of us have been around, and it is certainly something that is natural. Although both the Environment Agency and Canterbury have undertaken not repair works, I don't know what the word is, works to sort of try and mitigate the flood risk, particularly after the 2014 flooding. Quite a lot of sort of urgent maintenance work was undertaken to try and keep the river in bank or as best as possible. I'm aware the Environment Agency have commissioned Capita to undertake modelling, and they came up with 47 options that should reduce the flooding. 10 of those were shortlisted to be pushed forwards, and Canterbury has reviewed that report. We support the 10 that have been pushed forward and asked for another 4 to be shortlisted. So there were 14 options. The report hasn't been published yet. I think they were asking to review the modelling. I don't know if some of the outputs. It's quite an extensive system. I think some of the outputs that came out of it were possibly questionable. And the Environment Agency are rerunning some of that modelling. So hopefully it's out of our hands, it's with the Environment Agency, but hopefully that's something that they'll be pushing to complete. Yeah, it's a while ago. Yes, I'm aware. Thanks.
Thank you. Do we have other questions? I want to just ask about coastal defences, if I can, the sea defences, which we know are really important in our area. But there do seem to be some conflicts at times. So as Martin will know, through Reculver, some of the cliffs are slipping. And how do we prioritise that? Because it's a bit of nature that people like to go and enjoy. Nobody lives along there, so there isn't a risk of loss of property. But there is quite a conflict because people feel that they're losing their environment and their walks. And I just wondered what our policy is and how we balance some of that as we're seeing, you know, the coast eroding and disappearing, and of course we lost the bridge in Bishopston as well. So yeah, I just wondered if you could comment a bit on how we manage that. It might be to both of you actually.
Okay, so a lot of what we do is governed by the Shoreline Management Plan, which states that for the majority of our frontage, it's classed as hold the line under what we'd call short, medium and long epochs. And hold the line, therefore, means that we must maintain a 1 in 200 standard of protection up until 2105. We've just moved into the medium epoch, which was 2025 to 2055. And again, most of the policies, or I think all of them, bar the one by Reculver, the other side of Reculver, is still hold the line. So the Reculver Country Park, which I think is 4A13, I think is no active intervention. And that means that that is difficult for us to gain any funding to manage because the funding application to the Environment Agency and DEFRA is on a cost-benefit ratio. And as you say, there's no properties, unfortunately, in those areas. So that would be difficult to justify a large expenditure to protect the cliffs. So our funding is prioritised for all the hold the line frontages, which coincide with all the sort of built-up areas, Whitstable all the way through to Herne Bay. If we identify an area which is starting to fall below the 1 in 200, or we anticipate that it needs upgrading, then we can apply to the Environment Agency for funding through this FDGIA and sort of ask that cap in hand, will they support our scheme? And that will go for an independent assessment for us to gain funding to do the works. Out of Bishopstone.
Lovely. Thank you very much. And Councillor Dawkins is here as well. And Martin, you also mentioned that you had the meeting this afternoon, and we've obviously had two speakers here this evening as well about the Stour project and doing more to protect the river. And I wonder, Councillor Dawkins, if you wanted to talk at all about some of the work you've been doing and what we're doing as a council to protect and support these projects. And Martin, again, if there's anything you could add to that as well about where we are as a council and what we're looking at doing as we go through the next 18 months. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, so in terms of the speakers that have come up, so thank you very much for coming along tonight, and it's great to know that we've got a lot of people in our community that care so much about our rivers. And a lot of what the council's doing is what we can do within our own control, and then everything else is about what we do in partnership. So it's allowing those conversations to happen and making sure that we're always raising the profile and being clear about what we intend and what we want from our rivers. And I feel that we've done that, and the latest way we've done that is through our draft biodiversity strategy that's just in consultation right now, and within that strategy there is a big chapter dedicated to the water and the river and the coast. So, you know, everyone's able to have a look at that and read it. And then if you look at the actions that how we support in our rivers, freshwater and wetlands, a lot of those are all about partnership working. Obviously, we've got the Riverside strategy as well, and that group that you've just spoken of. And then we had Hayley come and speak, which is great. And I am actually sitting on that group, and the Friends of, what's it called? Friends of River Stour. Yep. And I have mentioned it to Martin that I'm supportive of the idea behind it to set up a charter and have the council endorse that as well. So whatever governance model, whatever process we have to go through to get to that point, we will do that. But I certainly will be supportive of it and have been going and attending to the meetings. I think it's a, you know, it's very much about, yeah, I mean, it's about seeing the river as a legal entity, and I know there's an MP at the moment, the second reading in Parliament, I think, to try and have chalk stream seen as a legal entity, which, you know, see how that one goes. But, you know, from a sort of layperson's point of view, I just think the rights of rivers really sort of offers this kind of symbolic way of looking at a river, so everybody can kind of grasp it. We know that there's experts doing stuff protecting it, but everybody sees a river in a different way, so it gives it that really holistic way of looking at it, and I feel like everyone can sort of get involved in that. Yes.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Councillor Dawkins. And yes, Martin.
Yes, so as Councillor Dawkins very correctly identifies, a lot of the work around the river doesn't sit solely with Canterbury City Council. There's lots of partners, as we've seen today, involved in there. So sometimes we really have to find, you know, where we can best allocate our resources to plug gaps or to move things forward. And Chair, one of the areas that we're going to be focusing on hopefully more over the next year or two is actually the Wantsum. So we are starting to look at the Wantsum and thinking about, I think it's probably about 15 years ago, a really exciting plan was developed looking at the coastal end of the Wantsum and looking around the Reculver area and coming up some landscape scale, as we say. So some large scale plans for sort of re-wetting those fields, creating new salt marsh, new freshwater grazing marsh. So some of those will link into exactly the things that Claire's been talking about as we move into the next epoch of the coastal management plans, and to see, you know, what happens along the future there with those coastal defences. But really, where we want to be working at the moment is with the farmers, and I know councillors have been raising that today. There's been talk about potato crops and things like that being very water hungry. We do want to engage with local farmers to find out how we can work with them to improve the Wantsum for its nature recovery, for its biodiversity, but also working with them to future-proof it with respect to their continued farming in that area, subject to climate change. So it's going to be an exciting area of work. We've already had a number of partners, including Thanet District Council, very, very keen to work with us on this scheme. And what I'm doing at the moment is trying to find external funding to undertake a feasibility study to see, you know, again, where can we best target our resources to move things forward. So if we get that funding, I'm hoping we'll be looking at 3 quite large engagement sessions with landowners there to identify how we can work with them, as I said, for nature recovery and also for the economy and employment around farming. So completely different scale, but, you know, it just shows the breadth of the things that we're challenged with. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, thank you very much. Well, as you know, that project is something very dear to my own heart. It's something I've championed for a number of years now, so it's really good to hear that there is progress being made. Does anyone have a burning final question? No. Right. Well, I would like to... No, you're making that up. Well, I would very much like to thank our officers this evening for being here, Marie, Martin, Claire and Leo. and Matthew and Stacey earlier, and for the great report that you put together. And I'd like to thank Councillor Dawkins for being here as well, and to our public speakers, and in their absence, South East Ayrshire and Southern Water. I know it's been an incredibly long evening, but we always knew it was going to be a long one because we were having this discussion. I know you all want to, because we were having this discussion, but we have had that, and hopefully that's the start of more. So, yes, I'm just doing that. Right. So we need to note that report. So if we can note it, yes, we're all happy.
Lovely, thank you.
And our next meeting is on June the 3rd, and we'll be focusing on transport, including park and ride, yay again, and the transport implications of the new local plan. But if anyone has any other transport issues they want to focus on, will you let me or Claire know so we can talk to officers about getting that? But thank you all very much. I know it's been a long one, but hopefully you've got a lot out of it. It's been worthwhile. See you all in June.